Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. So, hopefully, everyone is ready. We're buckled up. We're going to be doing a fun little project. So, this is going to be a lot of fun. Of course, we're looking into ZBrush, the new version, 2021.7. Looking forward to having you all here. John, good to see you made it. Hopefully, all is well. So we're going to be going through a project. So obviously, for those that don't know, we released a new version, right? Just a couple days ago. So this is, of course, a free upgrade to everybody that is a registered user. So any of you that bought ZBrush, whenever you bought it, you can still get this version for free. Okay, and this is a great opportunity to jump into ZBrush now, into the world. Okay, so this is a little page that we put together showing off the stuff. I already see people loving the knife brush. That's a big game changer for sure, right? So, and I'm going to be going through and using all these features that we have in this version together in a project. So we're going to be building this. So we're going to look at building something just like this. So this is something that I built in this version as a little challenge for me. Again, for a lot of cases for me, is I like to use the new features and try and challenge myself. What can I do, right, to this? So I encourage this for all of you. When we drop a new version, it's a good practice, in my opinion, to, hey, or let me try and make something and only with, say, like the new brushes or say with any other new features. It really helps you figure out how to use these features and work in your workflows. So first of all, let's just, before we get going, looks like for me, the video feed is good. So the audio, I'm assuming, is good as well. So just everyone give me the old thumbaroo up on my side that all is all looking fine for me. So I'm just double checking my other system here. Okay. So there we go. Okay, so if you guys can all just throw in that and let me know before we start diving in, and we're going to rebuild this. All right, awesome. Thanks, Elvis. Appreciate it. Okay, so as I like to say, let's buckle up. Buckle up. All right. I'm going to walk you through the process of how I made this beast. I still have a lot that I would like to do with this too. So, but I think right now we got a pretty cool looking truck. Sci-Fi truck thing, a helipad, as I like to call it, the helipad truck, so that ships and helicopters can land on it. So we got a mobile unit in essence. So I see myself making like maybe multiple versions of this differently. Hi from India. Wow, thanks for tuning in. And so we're gonna do with this one first. All right. So let's just get going in this. So I'm just going to start with simplistic. When I'm designing, when I'm thinking, and this is going to be great showing you guys how I was using these tools myself, and the direction I wanted to go with these tools. Okay, so we're going to start with first. Let's break this down simplistic, right? And this is for me a hard surface thing. Every time I'm looking at something for hard surface, I'm trying to look at the simple things, right? So like these body parts all in here, like I gotta look at the shapes in a simple way and go, okay, what can I do just to quickly get some shape like this, right? And in all honesty, when I was building this, it grew and changed based upon, oh, I have this idea for the helipad thing. Like I didn't even originally go in with that idea. It was a thought I had, right? So this is really what this version's all about for me. This version in particular is really about the discovery and adjustment that we're going to be able to do. Okay, so I'm going to start with just a simple cube. I'm going to turn the polyframe mode so you guys can see what's going to happen here. Right, so this is just grabbing the cube. I'm going to make this a poly mesh. And then because I'm designing and I'm not sure where I want to go with this at all, I want to actually use Dynamesh. In fact, you know, I know you guys also, let me turn something on real quick that I did not turn on. You guys want to see my hotkeys. So I'm going to turn that on real quick if I can find that. Program. Just there it is. That way you guys can see what I'm doing, right? There. Oh, it's over on the other side right now. Hold on one second. I forgot to launch this for you guys. Settings. Okay, and positioning. All right, well, we're gonna have to go without it. Sorry, I forgot to launch that. All right, so back to Dynamesh. Okay, so we're gonna Dynamesh this. Okay, so when I'm designing, I tend to use this differently. I will think about Dynamesh more as like that designing. So I don't like to be too dense for me personally, because I want to keep a fast flowing workflow. And in all honesty too, with a lot of these new features that we're going to get into, it's going to be nice to have something a little bit lower res and then be able to do. So I like to start a little bit lower just to give some breathing. So now I'm only at like 24,000 polygons because we're going to start reshaping this, right? So I'm going to throw my gizmo on. I definitely want to do something, you know, a little bit longer is what we were looking at. And then definitely something wider. This is my initial thoughts of where I want to go. I definitely didn't want something that tall, right? So just a quick, this is what I want. I just need some kind of base to start helping me out with this, right? I need to go somewhere with this, okay? So I want to start shaping something up. You know, I'm going to go a little bit wider. Let's go a little bit taller. Just a little bit taller. So this is where then we're going to throw in these new fun knife brushes that you guys are already, okay, talking about. Okay, so I'm going to then just start designing this up. So I want to come in here, maybe do something like this. Again, I'm just double tapping the Alt key so that I can get that design back there. And then I'm re-dynameshing. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say I want to do Y symmetry, okay, in essence here. So I have a top and a bottom ability. And again, I think this is important. This is what this little guy up here is good for you all. This will allow me to snap to different views. But then this is actually showing you the world view as well. Hey, Morpheus from Silent Hill. Love it. So this is just a way for me to snap. And then I know this is going to be the back. And then this is going to be the front. And that's how I knew also that I wanted to be in the symmetry mode of Y. Okay. So then we're going to do something like, let's just start playing with this a little bit. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go a little bit yeah, let's go there. I'm going to re-Dynamesh, right? So here's the thing. I have this, and I can already, by looking at this, going, okay, I don't like where this is sitting as far as the, you know, the size of this, especially when we start plopping the wheels on this. I already know that I'm going to want to change the size of this, okay? So I'm going to actually switch to my gizmo, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to use one of my favorite deformers for me, especially when it comes to this designing part of me, where I'm at, is the extender. I'm a big fan of this one because it gives me the ability to just, you know what, I need it a little bit longer, right? That is a simple process for me to grab that orange cone, and right now this is working symmetrically, okay? So I've got this cone, so I know this cone is automatically also going to separate from each other, which is why we are creating this yellow type of polygroup in here, okay? And I don't need creasing, so I'm going to turn this yellow cone off. And the thing that is controlling my symmetry is actually this cone right here, this blue cone, because that's the z-axis, right? That's the axis that I want to be along. So this is a good point to know as well, people, is if you drop this down all the way, so I'm just moving, and you can see when you scroll over it, there's actually two different types of symmetry in some of these deformers, but I'm just going to put it all the way to 0. And you'll see that there's a number that when you're pulling this, it's popping right between down here, because that's where the gizmo would live in the world, right? So if you do this, and now if you pull on this, see, you're only extending the front part of this design. If I pull this cone all the way back out, then I'm designing both at the same time, right? And again, this yellow cone is giving me my creasing. At this point, I don't need any of that. And then Now I have something like this. I read DynaMesh. Okay. And now you got something like this. And if you want to, you can start repolygrouping, right, with Control W. Okay. And then there's going to be a lot of other advantages here for us to keep doing some other things through here, right? So this is the kind of stuff that I want to start looking at and changing and designing, okay? And then looking at the front, I don't know yet if this is wide enough. So this is also why I'm staying in this kind of workflow right now, okay? So I'm now gonna go, all right, let's add a little bit of extra elements in this. So let's go to our other new brushes, which we've got now these new bevel arc and bevel flat. Like, I'm sure like all you were already saying, I'm gonna use the knife brush all the time now, right? And these two brushes I'm gonna constantly be using all the time, okay? So I'm gonna switch to the arc, all right? And the good thing about what I would recommend for these is go with a bigger brush size, okay? And then we're gonna have now a start point and end point, and then now just brush across to get a design element, right? So I need symmetry for this, okay? So I'm gonna hit the X key, and if you remember, we were symmetrical, right, along our y-axis, so up, top, and bottom. So I need to switch back to my x-axis, right, so that I can do this now on one side and on the other. So I want to do something right about there and go through there. Now, the thing you guys also want to know about this is you do have the ability, okay, to change this profile that you're going to have through here, right? So this profile right in here, right? So no matter where we do this, right, we get something like this, right, to start messing with our model, right? It's very nice. Like, this is, yes, thank you. A game changer, I agree. So this profile, I like it here, but I think the profile, say for this part, and let's actually switch back to now again our Y, because I probably want the same thing on the top and the bottom. So if we're going to do this, right, you might not want a profile like that for this, okay? That might not be what you're looking for, okay? And in fact, I'm going to go back and say, let's just look at the profile just along this path right now, right through here, right? So you can see this is what we're getting here because of symmetry, okay? So if you guys want to, you can come into your brush palette, and in the modifiers, I'm going to go, you know what? I want to go have a little bit smaller of that chamfering roundness happening. So this, by default, this is set to 50. I want to change this. I'm going to drop this all the way down to like 10, okay? So that I can have just a smaller, littler profile happening to this part, right? So you can see that is a very different look now in the design, okay? So I want just a little one like this, right? So I'm going to switch to, I'm going to have both X and Y, right? And I'm going to click here and here, and then go through here so that I have it going on all four sides. So I want that. Okay, I'm going to go back to my brush modifiers again now. Let's go ahead and put that front part on again. So I only need X now, so let's put something here. So there, okay, I want that. I'm going to read DynaMesh. Okay, that looks good. So now I've got the front end, just what I want. I got a nice little chamfer here and a bigger one right here. So that's why I want to know about that modifier ability, to have that so I can go change that depending on what is it I'm trying to make right now for this, right? Okay, and then along here, okay, we want definitely, again, I'm going to go just only X, and this time we're going to go to the bevel flat, which we're doing the same thing, okay? We're picking a point of interest, picking a point to stop, and then we're just brushing across here, right? To give us something that we want, okay? And now I can stop this if I want to, okay? But there's also ways to use this. A good thing you guys got to be thinking about is also using things like masking, right? So you can even do things like this. Go, and I'm going to go bigger brush size and go here, and then see you're only going to get along that area. So if you want to do something like that in the design instead, okay, then you can go. So right now, Alvis, this is only on straight lines. It's not going to have the ability to wrap around something, a surface, okay? So I'm gonna stick with what my original design was. I'm just gonna say I want to go from here to here, And let's just, yes. Right, and then just keep going across here like something like that. You know, I'm gonna actually change. I kind of like that now. I wish I went with that. This kind of makes sense for the helipad. I kind of like that it's stopping there, right? So we can look at this across the whole thing like I did, something like that, right? And probably not that much. Probably just some profile like this. Okay, that's the original design, but I'm kind of liking. And this is what I mean, discovering things. Like you're gonna find stuff maybe you like, but I kind of like this. It kind of solidifies that back portion being wider than the front portion a little bit too. So it's really nice to have this. Okay, so this also has the ability to continue adjusting, right? So I can even add another one in here and maybe do a little one in here if I want to and have another one, and then maybe this, like. Stuff like that, right, is just, okay, well, there's a nice line right there now. That's really nice, okay? So this is a really nice ability to be able to do this. And the one thing that I also want to add to this brush and the other brush is like when you sculpt across like this. So let's say, actually, let's use the Damien. Let's say I start doing scratches or something like this along the surface. I can come back to this bevel flat, right? And I can pick this normal and this normal, right? And then start working through here too, okay? So this is going to be nice to be able to see, just start playing with this feature, right? Through here. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with the design element of this. I'm going to say, okay, that's good. Let's go ahead and make a front end for this. Okay, so this is going to be me. I'm going to, for me, I start making folders. Let's just call this Sci-Fi truck for now in the folder, okay? And I'm gonna rename this main so that I have this, I know this is like my main body that I want, okay? So then I'm gonna come through here and I'm going to duplicate this. And then now I'm just gonna make sure that's in that folder. I want it in the same folder, okay? So now that I have this, I'm going to actually redesign something else here. So I'm going to click on my gizmo, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's center that. So I'm going to click this center, so I'm not in symmetry anymore, okay? And then I'm going to click on this setting here because I want to go and swap this out. Because right now I've got to duplicate the exact same thing, okay? So I'm going to say I want to add a polygon here. Okay. Hold on, I'm just reading a question. No, you can't cut through the mesh right now with the knife brush. You can't make a hole. No. It'll respect masking, though. It will respect masking in the sense that it can be useful for that. But that's it. Okay. All right, so here we go is, okay, and the other person's asking me about the 8 options. Noted, and I will be making a note of it. Okay, so I'm going to now, again, make this front. So this is, I need to make a little cockpit, right, for our people to drive this beast of a machine in, okay? And then I like really a lot of asymmetry stuff in my designs. I found even when I did photography, I would always do that too. I would kind of frame things off center. I just like that view for some reason. So I'm going to do that here. I don't want to have the cockpit right in the middle. I'm making a conscious decision that I'm going to move it over to the other side. Okay, so we're just in Gizmo still. And again, just for those that don't know, you can hit the W key back and forth. Okay? As you can see through here. Okay? So I'm going to now go and just move this over here. I'm going to say right about there. I'm going to go a little bit, maybe a little bit wider. Cockpit. I'm going to say, okay, that looks pretty good. I like that. Okay, and then now this is going to be a Dynamesh. And then now we're going to go back into this knife. Okay, and I'm going to do something from here. Okay, I'm going to re-Dynamesh that. And again, from the front, I want to go ahead and switch back to the bevel arc. Okay, and then I'm going to be in symmetry mode. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, right? And again, we want to be in X symmetry for this case. All right? And then I'm going to say, all right, see how the dot is over on the other side right now? So I'm going to come over here and turn on my local symmetry. Right? So now that I have that local symmetry, you see I'm going to have the dots on both sides. That's pretty much what I'm looking for. Okay? So again, relatively brush size because I want to do this whole line right here. I want to change that up. And I don't even know yet if that's what I want. Okay, and then maybe I want to go a little bit, maybe a little bit bigger. Something more like that. Yeah, okay, we're going to go like that. Okay? So that looks good to me as a nice like front part of this. So I'm going to go ahead and re-Dynamesh that. And then I wanted to have a little bit of difference here, right? So we're back to the knife brush. So again, I'm just holding Control Shift, okay, to do this, right? So I'm going to say, I'm going to come across like this, and let's do a little bit of a design. And again, if you notice, I'm not holding the keyboard anymore, okay? This is one important thing to understand about these brushes. This includes masking, this includes selection, right? You don't have to keep your hand on everything, right? This is the brush is engaged. As long as my pen's not coming off, we're in good shape. So I'm gonna double tap the Alt key so I can kind of come straight across in a way. I'm gonna say, come here. And actually, let's go a little bit. I'm gonna come a little bit stronger for this one. Let's come straight across like this. Yeah, that looks that's a little bit better. And then maybe a little bit thin. Let's go with a little bit different here. And I'm going to move this back a little bit. I'm going to put it more in there, that shape. Okay. So now I have this. I'll re-Dynamesh this if I want to. And then again, we can continue changing this design, right? I can do a little something like this, which I think is nice. It just adds another little element to our design. Okay. And then now, this is the top part, right? There's going to be more stuff we can put on here, right? We can go a little crazy up in here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, let's again, and this is just a popular thing I like to do, is reuse my piece, especially since this has got a very particular profile, like from the top view, right? This has got a particular profile, and I want to use that profile, okay? So I'm going to duplicate. Let's first rename this. I'm going to call this Top Cockpit. All right. I'm going to duplicate this. Okay, make sure it's in a folder. I'm going to rename this. Call this one the bottom Cockpit. Right? Okay, so now that I have this, this is going to be now, I want to have that kind of come down, and this is going to be the bottom half in here. And now what I'm going to do is looking at this. Let's just look at this in solo mode. Let's take advantage of what also the knife brush is doing for us. What's going on, Rodolfo? Welcome. Okay, so I'm going to come across and say, I really don't need this much, right? So if you look, I only need so much of this. So I'm going to say about there, okay? Then I'm going to say I don't need that. And then I'm also going to do this to the bottom. Okay, the reason why I'm doing this, and the ability of having the knife, as you can see, not only give us nice clean cuts now, I like to say yield sub, there isn't one, in all honesty, because what you're building is going to matter, right? So if you're building something that is very harsh, okay, like long, like I'm doing, then Dynamesh resolution plays a role in the physical size that you're doing something, okay? So I'm just looking, I saw that my speed fluctuated. Hold on. 1 second. I'm going to move this other keyboard out of the way for me. I'm just checking on the stream for you all. See, okay. So if you're getting a little bit of a bad feed right now, just refresh. Yeah, just refresh on YouTube. Okay, so I want to take advantage of this polygrouping that we're getting for when we're doing this, right? Okay, so this brush has this ability for me, so I might as well take advantage of this. Okay, so I'm going to look at this and say, all right, let's start going with making some different type of topology. So I'm going to come in here and go to geometry. I'm going to turn off Dynamesh. I don't need it right now anymore. Okay, and I'm going to go to ZRemesher. Okay, and I'm going to use the polygrouping now. So I'm going to turn on the keep groups, and I'm going to turn off actually this smooth group option. This slider is really good for if you're ZRemeshing something that is a Dynamesh. Okay, that's really what that one slider was put there for. Okay, so now I want to say, okay, let's go ahead and remesh this. Okay, so let's just go ahead and just do this. So I'm going to go below 1, so I'm in the hundreds now, and I'm going to remesh this, right? And now we're getting something a lot lighter in polygons, okay? And then this also opens up other items for me. So if I switch to ZModeler, right, we can go to the point of, you know, I can even start deleting like unnecessary edge loops that really I don't need to hold this. I've got good connections. Yeah. Yeah, I'm aware of the stream having a problem. Okay, so it should be back now. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on this. Okay, so now we should be good to go. Yes. Okay, we got good stream again. Sorry guys, I can't control the internet. Sometimes fluctuating for whatever reason. Okay, so now that I have something low like this, I want to again take advantage of even the polygroups. So I'm going to go into my creasing. I'm going to crease by the old PG'er, right? So I get creases on all those. Now I'm going to throw dynamic subdiv on by hitting the D key. And then now I always want that on. So we got pretty much the same thing here that I had, right? With a little bit change and variation. So I'm going to say, let's go ahead and adjust this. So I'm going to turn off. So you can see symmetry is on. I want this gizmo to sit in the center. So I'm going to turn off symmetry. And I'm going to center that. Okay. That way I can still manipulate this a little bit and position that. I'm going to recenter this. And I want to now turn solo off and go, let's make this be a little bit smaller. Just so there's a nice little, I'm going to come from here. I want a little gap through here, right? Because I'm going to use that in the design for myself, okay? So I want something that's more like this, okay? And then now let's take advantage of having the ability with ZModeler, okay? And I'm going to say QMesh, polygroup all, okay? And then I'm going to make another polygon. Again, if you guys remember, if you're tapping the Alt key, right, we'll keep changing that polygroup that I'm pulling on right here. Okay, that's what I want to do. I want to change on that right there. Okay, so I'm just tapping the Alt key multiple times, right, so that we have this. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, let's mask off. Okay, polygroup all. I'm going to tap on, for me, the orange, right? So now if we go to solo now, every point here that's orange is getting that. Okay, so I'm going to inverse it, and then I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's centered again, right? So it's just a habit of mine, and I'm going to shrink it down and just put some kind of nice little beveling part in here. Okay, and then this is why, one of the reasons why I kind of went with low polygon, okay, that I can make a lot of adjustments here on the fly, okay? So then I'm going to say, oh, I see an old school thing coming through here. Daisuke throwing the old stuff out there, the ABBKs. So then by having low, right, I can really change the profile of this. And I'm going to tell you one thing I'm keeping my eye on, people, is this. Okay, some of you might not be, but I use this a lot, right? I'll make some changes, and I'm looking at that silhouette. Okay? So that's what I'm looking for, is I'm going to change that profile just a little bit right in there. Okay? And then now for me, I also want to look at this a little bit different. Let's turn off polyframe for now. Let's turn our dynamic smoothing up to 4. I just want to have even a more smooth looking surface in here, right? And then I'm also going to, in the crease level, for those that know me, I've got this smooth subdiv now at 4, right? This is at 4. And I want to come down in this crease menu. And I want to come over here into this crease level. I'm going to drop this to 2. This is just my go-tos. There's no right or wrong for this. It's just what I prefer. Okay, I have found when I'm using things like this with ZModeler and low polygon, this is the way that I want to go. This is the way, okay, that I want to go. I like to have this at 4 and this at 2 when I'm doing low polygonal items with creasing, okay? And then I'm actually going to go back into ZModeler, and I'm going to uncrease, actually, this. So I'm going to go complete edge loop. I'm going to hold the Alt key and uncrease. So then I make something, do I like that look anymore? Or what if I did that? Like, do I prefer that, right? So for me, I kind of liked having this more of like a nice sharp top and a little bit of a rounding, right? Instead of what we did have. And this is really a judgment call on yourself as an artist, what you want to do here, right? It's your world. There. Happy little trees. Okay? So I'm going to go with I think I kind of still like the roundness. And because of the edge loops that I have right now, okay? So again, because of what this is, right? There's literally one big face right here, okay? I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add another edge loop in here. So I'm going to go insert and add an edge loop just to kind of make this shape a little bit more. Now, one thing that you guys also may not know, Morpheus, you want a little bit of the, for the users. Okay. So now I'm going to come through here. Okay. And Colin, to your question, I would do exactly what I just did with this piece. Okay. If you're trying to get a bubble around a rounded surface, I would do exactly what I'm doing for this piece. What I already did for this piece, right? Now, one thing that you guys may not be aware of, okay? We can insert an edge loop, right, through here. Okay, but what I can also do when I am inserting that edge loop, right, I'm going to crank my intensity up. Okay, and then now what this is actually doing is actually inflating out at the same time. All right, so let me undo that and let's solo this out so you guys can get a visual. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so it doesn't take up so much screen space for us. Okay, so I'm just going to turn off dynamic. Okay, and then you can see how much this is changing the profile, the low polygons, right? So if I go down a little bit lower, like just a little bit of a, this is now just creating more of a round in here so that when this divides, see, that gets a little bit more of a different profile look to it, right? So there's before, right? And then after. Now, the other thing that can come in handy, if this is up to you, is if you don't want to just lay down one edge loop at a time, you could do this same thing with multiple edge loops, right? So you can do, and the benefit of this is I like to visually see this changing in dynamic mode, right? So this is important for me. So this is what this interactive elevation is for. Okay, so making this, I might want to do this and then pull it out a little bit like this. So I would probably turn off polygrouping, and then you see I can even go inward if I want to. And maybe I want to do this, or I go out and just, I'm changing the profile, right? So here, we'll turn on polyframe, and we'll turn off the fill. Okay, so we're only looking at the edges, right? So you see I can adjust in and out, and then I go up and down, gives me my edge loops. So maybe I want to add just 2 there, more edge loops. Okay, and then now I solo this out, and then now that's kind of more what I'm looking for. Right, and I'm gonna go back to this now and say, let's adjust this now. I want this to have it be actually up a little bit more like that. Okay, and now I'm gonna say, let's go ahead and make some clean lines on this. I want to do that, right? And then this is, I'm using the knife brush to just even clean up, which is awesome. Like there. Like that piece to me is we're on to a good start. And I'm going to pull it up more so it just gives a little bit more. And I'm going to now, I want a little bit of a more shallower look like that. Okay? And then now I'm coming back to this. And again, I'm going to pull on these points and make sure it's sitting up like that, right? And then now there is that front little cockpit part. And maybe just a little bit more like that. There you go. Very nice. Right? So here you have it. So for this version, no, there are no new features for ZModeler for this particular version of 2021.7. No. But the last 3 versions, we've had ZModeler features. Okay? So when you're having this, now I want to start putting the wheels on this. Because the wheels is going to drive, also help the size. And what I mean by size of this mesh is, like, how physically large is this? Like, in real world, if this was a possibility to build this. Okay? So this is really going to be very, very beneficial. Hold on, I'm just reading a couple questions. Okay, so let me answer the one real quick because this is a question that you guys were asking. So if I grab a cylindrical piece, okay, and this is going to come in handy for things like this, right? And I make this a poly mesh, okay? Now, if you plan this ahead, right, and if you have this be a polygroup, and there's so many things we can make a polygroup. I'm just going to do it really fast with using our actual brush, okay? So then, let's, as an example, you're asking about making a bevel around a rounded surface, okay? And then let's just say, even for example, this is a Dynamesh. So we'll go like this, okay? So this edging is not going to be super clean. That's an easy fix. I can come down here to my deformation and I can polish by my groups, right? And if I open this up, it'll be even stronger. Okay, and then now that I have this, okay, you want to add a bevel. So you can add a bevel. We can turn off Dynamesh now in the creasing here. So there's a bevel option here, right? So you can hold the control key to do stuff like this too, right? So this has the ability to mess around with this as well, right? But if I have high polygons, you can also, if you wanted to, switch to, I'm going to switch to the transpose line with scaling. Okay, I'm going to hold control and tap. That's going to mask out the center portion, right? As you can see, right? And then I'm going to hold the control key and do this, which is an inset. Right, so I'm insetting this. That's what this is. So I'm in scale mode again with the transpose line. I'm holding control. And then now I can inset this. And then I'm going to switch back to move. And then now I'm just going to pull this out. And then there's a bevel. Right, so if you want to get a bevel for something hard surface with more polygons, this is a way, okay, to do that. There you go. Okay, so it's one way to do it. Okay, so back to what we're building. So let's throw some wheels on this. Okay, and I know, Pierre, let me see, your question just got lost in the dark too. There was something you were asking. I saw shift or control have different behavior when inserting edge loops. What is the difference? No, well, you mean when you're just doing an insert edge loop with a single, like, ZModeler? Is that what you're talking about? No, you can't make a hole with knife. You have to use live booleans. All right, so moving on, let's start putting some wheels on this beast. You know, and then looking at this already, I know I'm going to want to make some adjustments here in the body. But let's just start throwing some wheels on it first, okay? So for me, okay, the wheels are like their own separate thing. I'm going to want to maybe apply different materials to this as I'm working and where I'm going, right? And in fact, you know, you look at the final piece, right? I've got different materials. So let's even maybe start that idea and that process now. So I'm going to click here, drag out. There's metal A. is what I'm using for my body. Okay. And then for my wheels, I'm using Reflect 2. Okay. For the rims. And then I'm just using a basic material for the actual tires themselves. So let's go ahead. I'm going to grab metal A. Let's go back to this. And I want to see how much different that's going to look like now. So let's go ahead and fill it to all the subtools that I have right now. So I'm going to do that with our handy dandy Scale Master. Subtool Master. I just saw Scale Master and I said it. And I'm going to click on Fill. And then I'm going to say, I got white selected. I kind of like that. I'm good with that. So I'm going to say Color and Material and say OK. And now ZBrush just went through and filled that same material and that same color on all the visible subtools. In this case, it's only these 3, right? So that feature's nice where I want to fill a bunch of things, right? So now I want to go, let's throw a wheel on this. Now here's a decision I got to make as an artist. Do I want to just keep adding to the same folder? Or do I want to do something else with this, right? So I'm gonna make the decision here. I'm gonna make another folder that's just for all the stuff I'm gonna do with the tires, right? Because I'm gonna do multiple start groups and everything in here. So I'm just gonna append anything at this stage. It doesn't matter what it is, okay? It can be a cylinder if you want to, right? So now that I have a cylinder here, I'm going to Control F, okay, and make a new. Let's go just call this tire parts. All right, and then I'm gonna call this now the tire. Okay, so that we have this. So this is a cylinder that we have sitting here in space, right? So now I can come over here and turn off the body for now. And now we're only looking at this cylinder, nothing else. All right, so for me, this is another one of those ones, like, I know I'm going to want to make some kind of cool adjustments and cool things to this tire. So I'm going to go, my mind immediately goes, low polygon, Z modeler is the way to go for this. Okay. So I want to have this to be low polygon. This is pretty low, but there's a lot of geometry through here. So I'm going to replace this piece by hitting the W key. And right now I was showing you guys a way to use the transpose line. So I'm going to hit the Y key because the Y key is going to bounce me back and forth between transpose line and the gizmo. Transpose line with the gizmo. Okay. And Pierre, I'll be getting to more insert here and we'll answer your questions. Okay, so this is going to be replaced. So I'm going to go to this gear and I'm going to say, forget it. I want to replace it with this cylinder, which is the same thing, but this one's already low polygon. And then the beauty of this for me is I actually want, this is going to be a tire, right? So I can adjust this, right? If I want to, I can rotate this in space. Okay. And then if you hit the W key, you can go back and forth between the gizmo and the cones. And I know that because this gear is orange. That's why this gear is orange. That's telling you, if you click on the gear, there's actually 2 states right now. There's a gizmo state, and then you created a cylinder. Okay? So then I want to say W and say, okay, well, this is a tire. So it needs to be a tire. It needs to have an opening. Okay, something like that. And I'm going to say that's plenty low enough, polygon-wise, right? Okay, so I'm going to go back to the W, and now I have this. Okay, so now I want to put this in place. So now we need to turn everything back on, and we want to put this tire in place. Okay, so first of all, this tire shouldn't be... well, it could if you wanted to have a massive tire, maybe, and this is a design element you can mess with, right? So, like, I don't want a massive tire, but maybe you do. Maybe that'd be a cool design, maybe. Maybe this tire's, like, completely along the body. I'm going to go more with the traditional, just a smaller tire like this. All right. And then I want to go and say, let's position this. This is going to become the back tire. Okay. So I then need to pull this out. Now, what's going to be important, again, I'm going to turn on the floor grid so we can just see what we're doing here. Okay. So you see you've got a red line, the blue, right? Those are my axes. This is important now for where I'm about to go with this. So I want to be conscious of the axis that I'm moving things on right now for this particular piece right at this second. Okay. So I'm going to turn that floor grid back off, and I'm going to say, let's go ahead and move this out here. All right. And this is going to be the back tire. So I want it to be back here, and then it needs to sit somewhere around there. Right. And I want this to be relatively big. So I'm going to go a little bit bigger and then go right here. Right. And then you can do stuff like I can rotate this if I want to. Right. And here we go. We got a moving tire. Yeehaw. Right. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. This is a pretty big tire. Let's go maybe a little bit smaller, a little something more like that. Okay, and I think maybe I went a little too big. Let's go right in there. Okay. So now I'm like, I don't know how many tires I want, and this is what I love about ArrayMesh. Okay, so I'm gonna grab ArrayMesh now, and then this is just sitting in space for me right now. Okay, and then I'm gonna go with, let's turn on ArrayMesh. Okay, and then I'm gonna turn on lock position, lock size, and transpose, because I know what I'm gonna do down the line. Okay, and then now I'm gonna say, let's go ahead, and I want to start, let's say, repeat of 4. So I want 4 tires. So nothing happens, right? But what's really happening is there's 4 tires just sitting right there in the same spot. Okay, so I'm gonna turn now on the transpose line again. So you guys should know how to do this now. The Y key, right? So you're hitting the W, right, to take us into the gizmo state, and then the Y. The reason why I want to use transpose again, because now with ArrayMesh, this is in essence the GUI that can be used, and I prefer doing ArrayMesh with this. I've got the number of repeats, I got a staging, and in essence, this is really some of the guts right here of ArrayMesh. You got an offset ability, a scaling, a rotation, and a pivot ability, right? And all this, all 4 of these with all 3 sliders exist right here, right? Because if I'm in move mode, that is offset. If I'm in scale, that's the scale here. This is the rotate, this is the rotate, and the pivot, you're gonna find out in a little bit what that pivot is right there, if you wanna have that pivot right there, okay? So now you have, say, something like that at your disposal. Okay. So now I want to mess with this a little bit more. Okay. And I'm going to go with, all right, let's see now 4. Let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to go to move. And then now right here, I'm just going to click on this center circle and you see it moves, but I'm going to hold the shift key and pull out the tires that I have. Okay. So for me, what starts to being a little distracting is they don't look like tires, right? They're just whatever right now, okay? So let's make this, for me visually, to be able to see what I want to do. I'm going to turn on dynamic subdiv by hitting the D key, right? Everything's going to soften down, okay? The second thing I'm going to do is, let's, right out the gate, I'm going to select a basic material, and we need a darker color here. Something more like that, okay? And then let's go ahead and MRGB color fill that. And we can turn MRGB back on, off. So now I start getting that separation as a visual cue for me. Okay. Listen, your question is you should determine the number of tires by the amount of weight they will carry, or whatever looks cool. I think both. Saticus, you should be both. Like if I'm my head, this, and this is also why I ended up, your question is why I ended up going with 5 tires. Okay? Because I was building something like, hey, this thing's ginormous. It needs big tires to hold the weight, and it's going to need a lot of tires to hold the weight. So I think it's both. But then you also want to make something design-wise that looks cool in the same token here, right? So I'm going to now say, let's go ahead and increase. So now we have something like this. And then I'm going to go again. I'm going to put this at 4. I'm going to drop my crease level to 2. So now I'm starting to round this out a little bit. And I want to put a little bit more volume in the tire. Okay, so this is the beauty of also ArrayMesh. I'm going to turn this on. We're in here. We're going to insert multiple edge loops and be interactive. And this time I'm going to say keep polygroup. All right, so what that's going to do is not change. So right now this whole tire is red. The whole polygroup is red. Okay. So this, now I just want to add a little bit of volume to this. Just start making it be a little bit more something like that, right? And then I'm going to uncrease. I don't want to have actually this crease, this crease, this crease here, here and here, right? And then so now we start getting something like this. You know what? I think, let's see if I'm going to insert these. Let's get rid of actually these edge loops and make something more like that, right? So I get a little bit of a flatter, so I got a little bit of inflation, but then it does flatten out, which would make sense for a tire, right? It's got to have a flat surface at some point so it can make traction with the ground. So I got rid of the two edge loops, sorry, that were in here, right? So that way I have something like this, right? And then I'm going to uncrease this one as well. Okay, so I'm going to uncrease those in there as well. Right, so now there, I'm looking more for something like this. And you can see there is a plane shift happening in there. All right, and so now I want to insert. Okay, and this is going to go, Pierre, to some of your question. I'm just going to move, I'm going to move a point and then do this. I'm just going to move a point. Okay, and when you're inserting an edge loop, okay, when you do an insert of an edge loop, okay, if you're holding control, nothing's happening. Control isn't doing anything with inserting an edge loop, Pierre. But shift does. Okay? So if you notice, this is about snapping to the edge that I was closest to inserting. So in this case, right, when I inserted this, I was close to this edge loop through here. So when I click on this, if I hold the shift key, you see how the new edge loop is kind of snapping to it. Hold on. I hit shift on and off too much on the Windows side. Hold on. It's now asking me, do I want to make that a shortcut? Okay, so if I come here, right, you'll notice that it's now trying to follow this profile. So what I changed in here is now trying to follow that instead of following this. So it's about where you click. If you click closer to here and then hold the shift key, it's going to do that. If you pick closer here and hold the shift key, it's going to do that. So here, let me actually do it on something that's even definitely more visual for you to see, okay, real fast, so that you can have a complete understanding of this, right? And then we'll go back to white. Let's make this a poly mesh, and let's grab a cube. Let's make single face, right? And then I'm just going to do an inset, and I'm going to do just a single polygon like this. All right, and then let's just do a mirror wall so you guys can see it better across the X. Okay, so now if I'm in this, and remember, I'm inserting a single edge loop. When I do this, you notice that as I move back and forth, the edge loop's changing because it's seeing the profile of this edge loop, right? And this one's got a 45-degree angle in the corners. And if I'm in here, see, it's trying to go more straight. So the shift key is telling it, no, 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 no. You need to be 100% straight to the curve that you're closest to. And you can see I can do this and put a straight curve there if I want to. But maybe I want to do this where I want to bring that in here, and now I want that angle to be the exact same as that angle. Okay, so that's the difference. Okay, it's all about where you click on the surface, right? So if I'm, again, if I'm clicking closer to this edge loop, right, which I am right now, then holding the shift key, it's straight. If I'm clicking closer to this edge loop, coming through here, and hold the shift key, that's what you're doing. Okay? Right? But holding the control key isn't doing anything with insert edge loop. Okay? So now back to our tires. All right. So I got this. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Wonderful. Wonderful. Wonderful tires. Okay, and let's start manipulating these a little bit more. So I'm going to say, let's start having some fun with this. I'm going to go insert single edge loop. I'm actually going to make this kind of have a little bit of roundness to it. Okay, I'm going to have a little bit of roundness in there. I'm going to come in here now. Let's Q mesh by polyloop. And let's have a little bit of more thickness on the tire. And I'm hitting the Alt key to change my poly grouping. I'm gonna go there. That looks good. And then now let's go ahead, and this time I'm going to do an inset, okay? No, John, for what I'm doing here, I would not use Stager for this. And there's a reason why I don't need Stager for this. I'm already good to go. Okay? So I don't think Stager is necessary from this. We'll do Stager later on though. All right, and then now I'm going to say let's inset, but this time along a poly loop, and I'm going to say entire region of polygons. Okay? And then this way I can do this. Right? So let me turn off dynamic so you guys can see what this is doing. And this is what I want. I want something like that, because what I want to do is put a little bit of now a ridge in here. So I'm going to go QMesh polyloop and just pull this out. I want something like that just to give like that, right? This is going to give, oh, and I need to go back. Actually, let me go back to make sure I got my clean. Okay, good. Let me redo that because didn't go back far enough for when I was messing with showing you guys that. So you guys get to see everything again. So we're going to do this. Then I'm going to do an inset. I'm going to do this, right? And then along here, I wanted to have a little bit more of that. And then now I want to QMesh this and poly loop that up. And then now give me that. Right? I just want a little bit of a ridge there. This is also going to help for me for when I go to put the rims in, right? Because that's going to be a drastic change in material quality as well and design quality at the same time. Okay? Okay, so right now I'm liking what I'm seeing, looking good. Looking at this, I'm going to say, you know what? Let's get rid of this edge loop in here. And let's come right along here and do a multiple edge loop. And this time, I'm not going to have any elevation interaction at all. And I'm going to switch to the specific resolution. And I'm going to drop that to 1. And that allows me to click right here. And I'm going to click dead center of this tire now in this little profile part. Okay, and then now I'm going to turn on my symmetry. Okay, and now I'm going to switch back to insert a single edge loop. Okay, so the other thing you guys now got to be starting to think, we need tires on the other side. So most of your minds probably would go, hey, well, let's just mirror and weld it over. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep it where it's at right now. And we're going to take care of that next in a second here. Okay, so I'm going to say, no, I don't want any Z intensity. I'm going to do something like this. Let's get rid of that edge loop now in the middle. And I'm going to, again, QMesh polyloop, push this in. And this was just a design decision for me. I wanted to have a little variation, something going on the tire. That was just different. Okay, it wasn't the same thing happening all the time. All right. And now, let's take care of that other side of the tire. So this is going to go back to ArrayMesh, is actually where I want to make this decision. And I'm going to do it this way on purpose because I know with ArrayMesh, we're working with like an instancing system right now. So whatever I do to the one tire, it's happening to all the tires. Right? And then now I'm going to go back to my ArrayMesh and I'm going to say, let's append another array. Okay? So I'm going to say append new. So now I have a second stage. So I got a stage 1 and a stage 2. Okay, so this is stage 1, this is stage 2. So in essence, stage 1 is making the 4 tires, and now stage 2 is just repeating those 4 tires again, right? So if we go back into this and I start just moving this, you can see I'm repeating the 4 tires. Great, that's exactly what I want, okay? But what I want to do now is I want to put those tires on the other side, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tell ZBrush what I want is, let's go ahead and look at this a little differently. And let's tell this, looking at this, I'm going to say, let's reset this. Okay, and that makes sure to put this in the center of the world for us. And then I'm just going to come down here and say mirror X, and I got the other side. Right? So instead of me mirroring welding this in this scenario over, I can just do this, right? This opens up things for me now that if I'm looking at these tires, right, I can look at just the one and make some different decisions here, right? I can say, you know what, the width of these tires are not where I want them to be, as an example, okay? So I can say, all right, let's mask out the center point of these tires in here, right? And then I can do so many things in here. I can switch back to my gizmo if I wanted to, right? Come off of symmetry, center this, reset it, and then I can just say I want the tires to be a little bit wider, something like that, and then inverse this, right? And then just mess with this and make that center part even a little bit wider, right? And then I'm seeing it on both sides, right? And then I'm only adjusting the one tire in essence, right? So this is why I went with this decision. Okay, and then now this is definitely where I went, okay, 4 tires was cool, but the design, it didn't sit right with me. Okay, and this is where I actually made my decision. I'm going to go back to stage 1 because now that I have 4 tires and 4 tires, it's not working for me. It's not feeling like powerful enough. And so this is where I went, I'm going to go 5 tires here, right? And see, there's 6. See, just adding these other tires is starting to give a little more weight. So, but you can also do this with the gizmo. I'm sorry, with the transpose line. So you can see there's a repeat of 6. So you guys can add tires here, right? So I can just say how many tires I want right here. So I'm going to say I want 5. And then now let's space them out. And I wanted a tire kind of in the front, right? So just doing that alone, for me, in my design, sorry, something stuck in the throat, gave it a little bit more volume, right? There's a lot more going on there for me to look at, right? To have, right? So now that looks cool. Let's go ahead now and work on putting in some elements here, okay? So let's go ahead and now let's throw just some rim in there so I can start separating that and get what that's going to look like. Okay, so the beauty of this now is because I have this tire here for me ready to go. I'm going to say, let's just duplicate this. And I'll make sure it's in this folder because I want it in the folders. I'm going to rename this. I'm just going to call this rim. Okay. And now I want to make some rims for this. Okay. So number 1, let's assign a different material to this. Okay. So this is where I went and used a different material. So this is Reflect 2. So let's go ahead, MRGB, color, fill object, right? So now, oh my goodness. Okay, so this is now that. That's not working for me because obviously it's now just sitting in the exact same location. But we're going to solve that right now. So I'm just going to solve this out so we're only looking at this. Okay, and you can see what we have here. And because of everything I did here, I've got now a polygroup right here. So I'm just going to select that polygroup because that's what I want to use for my rim. So I'm going to hold down the Control-Shift and tap on that polygroup. Now I'm going to come down here in my geometry, modify topology, and delete hidden. Right? And then now I need this to be a rim. So I'm going to go Q-Mesh. I'm going to say polygroup all, and I'm going to pull out on this. And then now, let's see, boom, like that. You can really start to see now that there's a rim in there compared to the tire. And then the beauty is, this is another reason why I went with the ArrayMesh for this particular scenario, is they're already in the correct place everywhere, right? So I'm getting it on all 10 tires, all in the same spot, because when I duplicate it, it's duplicating also the exact same ArrayMesh. Okay? So then this is coming really well, okay, working for me. 3 and 2 tiers on one side, keeping from an instance. Hold on, I'm trying to read your question, Soren. Any way to group a 3 and a 2 tier on one side, keeping them as instances? Yeah, you can. You can have like 3 tires on one side and 2 tires on another side, per se, because it's an array. That's one's doing one over another. But you can mess around with the ability. That's what all these other sliders are in here. These little start sliders, right? So if I like upped the number here, then you can tell it where to turn a pattern off, as an example, where you can tell it where to start a pattern if you want to in ease, right? Stuff like this. And see, I can put 1 tire in the back, 3 in the front now, right? So this is all, can control those things like that, okay? But I want to keep going because I'm trying to get through this thing from beginning to end. But those are the sliders you'd want to experiment with. Okay. Okay, so this is looking fine. I'm liking this. Let's go ahead and let's look at this a little bit closer. Okay, definitely I want this to sit a little bit more in the tire, a little bit different like that. Okay, and then that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and say, let's copy this. Okay, so back to the rim. I'm going to duplicate that and rename this rim inner piece, right? So rim inner side. And then now I'm just going to take this. I'm going to make this be a lot smaller. So got something like that. Okay, I like where that's sitting. Maybe a little bit wider. Something like this. Okay, and then looking at this, let's just look at this again. I actually want to get rid of some of the topology here. Okay, so I'm gonna, there's multiple ways of this. I'm gonna do it with ZModeler. Hold the space bar. I'm gonna say delete, and say polygroup all. I'm gonna say delete all those faces and all those faces. So now I'm left with this. Okay, open cylinder. I'm gonna go to that edge. Okay, and then now you have close, and then close convex and concave. I'm gonna do convex hole 1 line, and then I'm gonna tap on that, and then I'm back to, in essence, literally what I started with, kind of, right? You remember the tires? I started with just a cylinder like this, right? So I just kind of reconstructed this really quick because I want to have some fun with this portion in here, right? I want to do a little bit more with this in here, okay? So let's go ahead and insert. I'm going to go in here. And in fact, you know what? Let's go ahead and do this symmetrically. So I'm going to turn on symmetry. I'm going to say I'm going to do an insert in here. And then let's take these polygons in here. Let's make those a new polygroup. I'm going to Q mesh those out. Okay, might help if I hit Q mesh, polygroup all. And I'm going to say I want it to come off, beveled a little bit. That means that I'm going to want this creased right here. So when I look at it, I get that little bevel, right? And I think this is also an important part why switching to a different material will help you, especially in this design phase of looking at this. Okay. So there you go. So now that I have this, okay, I'm going to want to insert an edge loop in here, right? And then maybe let's do another one here. And then here I'm going to do Q mesh this time, poly loop. Let's put a little loop through here. I'm going to change the poly grouping. And then now have some kind of rim portion like that. Okay, and then let's insert again a single edge loop here. Okay, something like that. And now once again, I want holding the Alt key, just painting these faces and letting go. And I can tap the Alt key while my pen's still on there. And then I'm changing that up. Let's go ahead and let's Q mesh polygroup that. Let's do something like that. And then I'm going to do a bevel and bevel that up. And then now I'm going to tell it to crease here, here, and here. And let's insert another edge loop right there. So then we get something like that, right? So now we're starting to get that inner part happening. Okay, DD. Yeah, the knife brush can't cross over itself. Like you can't do this because then it doesn't, you're telling one side, right, this curve over here, to delete everything on the other side. But then you're also telling this side to do the same thing. If you're crossing them over, you're creating a problem, right? Because you're telling one side to delete the other side, the other side to delete the other side, but then they're deleting each other. You can't do that. There'd be no geometry to make. Okay, so that's probably what's happening to you. You can't do this with the knife. You're creating a bow geometry in essence. Like this one side can't delete the other side if it's already deleted, right? That's what's happening. You're putting it against each other. Okay, so Vogue is right. Thanks. So let's have some fun with this now. Okay. So I'm going to select this. All right, and let's duplicate this. And this is going to be, let's duplicate this one. Now, if you guys are noticing, I like to do a lot of duplication and reusing. And in some cases, I'm not worried about welding because I can also weld later on the fact too. So let's rename this. Let's call this rim spokes. Okay. And then now I want this to go back to being a cube, let's say. Right? So I'm going to center this here. Right? And then I'm going to use a cube. And then beautiful. You know, that looks cool. Now it looks even more like a moon rider. Right? Someone brought it up. Looks like a moon ship. So I'm going to crease this. I'm just going to crease this so we keep it as a cube. I'm going to size this down. So it's sitting in there. All right. And then I'm going to now, in this array mesh, okay, right now we're array meshing all of this. Right? So I'm going to have a little more fun with this. So I've got an array mesh happening everywhere, right? And all the tires. So I'm going to insert a new. And what that does is made a new one before the previous two. So now this one has 3 stages, right? And if I up arrow key, all the other ones only have 2, right? So what I did, for this one, I added another, right? I wanted another one there, okay? Because I want to now start using this to my advantage a little bit, okay? So I'm going to come and this is where that pivot. So because I'm in transpose and because I've turned this on, this allows me to do a transpose. Okay, so I'm just going to move this more over into here of the world, right? Something like this. Just kind of, and again, I'm not in perspective mode. Just kind of move that here, right? And what I'm doing is moving these, right? So you can see these sliders. This is moving it. This is moving in the Y, so I can put in values here if I want to as well. Type in any value that I want to, right? Okay, and then this is the one that's giving me this movement, right? So I'm going to do something like that. Okay, and now this one, I'm going to say, again, remember we talked about axis points, where that's important to me? So let's turn this back on, and see that red line? That's my X axis. Okay, so what I'm going to now tell ZBrush is, let's go ahead and play with some rotation. And let's play with some rotation along the X axis. I'm going to go 360 degrees. Okay, for this. And then now I'm going to switch back this time to the gizmo instead of the transpose. So again, you guys know how to do this now. We've talked about it already. Hitting the Y key. All right, and then I'm going to pull this out. And you're going to see what happens is I'm making another one now on the other side. Right, so here, I'm going to turn into solo mode so you guys can see this. Right, so you see, as I move this, there's now another one on the other side for me. Okay, and let's take advantage of now this. I'm going to hold the Alt key and I'm going to tap. Right, and what that does is puts the gizmo at the bottom face of this cube. So now, when I do something like, okay, I'm going to move this about there, but when I do this, right, it's only moving... If you look in these faces, this face right here is the only one that's moving, right? This face down at the bottom, here if I do this, is staying stationary. Right? So you see how these 4 vertex points aren't moving? I use this all the time, right? And especially for something like this. I'm like, okay, I want to do this. Okay, and then now maybe, you know what? I also want to make them skinnier. Something like that. And then I go, do I like that? Right? And I'm seeing it on all the wheels. Or do I not like that? I don't know. Let's try. What if I put 6 spokes? Right? Now there's 6. What if I did 8? Right? And now I can look at this visually and figure this out. Do I really like what's happening here? And not only that, you can have a little more fun with this. and this pretty much what I ended up doing. I said, okay, this looks a little bit more. Okay, this thing, like going back to that person's point, this thing's big. It's massive, right? This made the rims to me be like a little, hey, I'm a little weak little rim, right? So I wanted a little bit more size to this rim, if you will. So I'm going to say, let's take this, and I'm going to say, let's unmask these top points. And then now, do stuff like, I can play with this. Maybe I want to go... Like, what does that look? Maybe I go real crazy, right? And then you can see what that does, right? So I got something like that now. Like that makes the design look very different for sure. Okay, these cubes are in a separate subtool right now. Cosmic Legends, you can have the tire at the top if you want to. There is ways to do that, but I'm trying to stay on, unfortunately, I'm trying to stay on path so you guys can go and recreate something like this after the stream, right? So I'm not going to be doing as many tangents as I normally would that some of you guys are used to. Okay, so I'm going to say my next thing is, all right, I kind of like this a little bit more, but then I went, you know what? It's still a little too much for me, okay? And number one, let's add some more variation to this. Okay. So I'm going to say from this, see how it's all that? I'm going to say, let's unmask the bottom portion here. And then let's make this be a little bit more like that, right? This now, now look at that. See? The way that light is hitting, it's not just perfectly flat, right? That already is giving me a little bit better design feel for me. So I'm going to go right about there. And looking at that now, let's go a little bit wider with the top. Just a little bit. There we go. And now begin, because we're array meshing, the beauty is now I'm going to go ahead and do an instant. I'm going to do, with an instancing, I'm going to do an inset, single face, and I'm going to say just one polygon. Right? So I'm going to do this side here, and I'm going to tap and do the other side. Right, something like this, and then I'm just going to Q mesh single polygon through so we create that. And then this is the rims I started to go with that I was like, okay, that's looking pretty. See, I liked that. It's got some lightness to it, but then it also has a little bit more. And then I said, you know what, I want to now play again with the top, so I'm going to unmask. We're going to make it change the profile of this a little bit. So I need to unmask just that. And then I started playing with this again. And then this is where I would turn all this on and say, what do I like? Do I want something like that? Do I want something like that? So I preferred this, was what I preferred. Something a little bit more like that. Okay? So then I started wanting to now do more elements to this. So then I said, okay, then let's do another inset here. This time, again, I'm going to do the inset region for this. All right, and I'm going to do a poly loop. And then this right here, I want to inset this along here. Changing my poly groups. Perfect. And then now I've got a new poly group in here. So let's go to QMesh, polygroup all. Pull this out, but I'm going to hold the Alt key first. Just give it a little bit of a bevel part in there. And then maybe something more like that. This is now just going to start giving it a little bit more depth, right? And then now I got this roundy looking one, which I'm not really a fan of. So this is all I need to do is start creasing the stuff that I want. So maybe you want to do something like that. I'm going to go with, I want the whole corners. I want these corners here. So I'm going to crease. I'm going to do a complete, crease that, because I prefer more of a look like that. And let's make sure these are all creased. I want something more like that for me, right? But just adding these little ridges, points of interest in here, make a little bit of a difference, right? So looking at this, I'm going to QMesh polygroup all, hold the Alt key, the Shift key while I do this. I want a little bit more there and just put a little bit more volume. See, now that size is working a little bit better for me, okay? And then anytime, right, if you want to make this change your mind, all this stuff is at play for us now, right? I can even come in here and I can say insert, multiple edge loops. Let's do a specific edge loop, tap, right? And then now I can even play with this profile here, right? Do stuff in through here. And then this is all creased right now. So I'm going to say crease, right? And then now this would be more of a rounded top portion if I wanted something like that, right? So this is why also I'm making the reasons that I made with this, why I'm going with ArrayMesh as an example. Okay, what material are you asking specifically about? Because the materials I'm using all ship with ZBrush. So this is a Reflect 2. So that's that material right there. Okay. And then the one for the body right now, Metal A, that's actually in a project that I pulled it from. So that ships with this right here. Cumish bevel. That's where that material from the body. Okay. And then Karen, this is I copied, right? I copied my arrays that were already happening. So when I copied, I in essence duplicated it, right? I duplicated the subtool. And when I duplicate that subtool, it's duplicating everything that I've been doing in that previous subtool, and in this case, the ArrayMesh. And as me is playing around with my design, this is what I prefer. It's just what I prefer. Okay? So then my next thing was, okay, the tires, bleh, they seem a little too plain. So I'm going to make this be a little bit deeper of a ridge. Okay, that looks cool. And now I want to manipulate now I want to change this up. This is where some real fun can come into play now. Okay? So let's duplicate this tire and let's... Okay, let's put some treads on this. But again, we're going to do this in another unique, different way, once again, okay? So I'm going to say, I only want a portion of this tire. And I'm just going to solo it out so you guys can just quickly see what I'm doing here, all right? So I'm going to just select out these faces. I only want these faces right here. These are the only faces I'm really interested in, okay? And you can see the ArrayMesh is happening everywhere for me, all at the same time. This is going to be a cool factor coming up. This is definitely one of those Lisa needs braces combined with everyone say it with me, the look up here, right? So, okay, now that I have just this, let's delete the rest. Let's get rid of the rest of that tire. Okay, so I'm going to delete hidden. And so now I'm left with is just this. Okay, and now looking at this, I'm like, you know what the only faces I really need in here, right, are these faces right in here, okay? So I'm going to say from here, let's make this be a new polygroup. Something like that, okay? And now I just want only those. This is the only thing I'm actually really interested in. So I'm going to say delete hidden now, okay? And so now we've got this, and you guys can kind of see where this is living right now. So I'm going to turn on dynamic so we can see what that does. And then now I'm going to say, okay, we're starting to get this floating little piece on this tire. Let's take advantage of dynamic subdiv right now. Right? I'm going to actually turn off the smoothing. So we're back to having no smoothing at all. Okay? And then I'm going to say, let's play with some thickness. Let's give this some thickness. Okay? And what I want to do is I want the thickness to only go one direction, right? So as I'm adding this is just putting some thickness in here, right? And I'm going to say the offset, you can either go positive, 50-50, or all the way negative, right? So I'm going to do something like this. We don't need it to be maybe something like that, maybe, yes. Okay. And I'm going to even, let's change up a little bit of this in here too. So I'm going to say, okay, I like that thickness. That's starting to come together for me. That's looking good. All right. So without the smooth on, okay, we're just adding thickness to a very, just simple geometry right now. That's all we're doing. So I'm going to apply this. And then what I get is the actual geometry, right, from that thickness. So now I have something like this, right? So if I now turn smoothing back on and let's do something like that, we start getting this kind of a thing, right? Okay, so I want to start manipulating this. Let's see. I think I deleted a face over here. Hold on. Let me go back. I accidentally deleted a face right here. I deleted some faces, the faces that we wanted to keep. We want those. And this one. Okay, we want these faces. These new ones right here. All right, so again, I'm going to delete hidden nose. Okay, turn on my dynamic. I don't want any smoothness. I want some thickness. And I want that to be offset. And I want to take a look at that offset and thickness as a unit together, kind of, something like that. I'm going to apply that. Turn my dynamic back on. Turn the thickness off. Right? You guys aren't seeing this. My head's in the way. And then turning my smooth back on. And then I definitely want my crease level still at 2. And now this is all about creasing. So I'm going to crease by the polygroups first. Okay, and do something like that. And then I want these edges over here to be creased. So let's turn on symmetry. So I'm going to crease just a single edge. Single edge. And now we got something a little bit like that. And looking at this, let's manipulate this a little bit. I don't like this part in here, right? So I'm going to say, let's unmask these. I'm going to center it and reset, and then just let's pull these down a little bit. And now let's turn this on so we can see what this is going to look like if I start manipulating this. Okay, and then so now this is the tread I'm starting to make, something like this. So maybe I want to pull this out a little bit more like that. I'm going to go more something like there. And let's go ahead and add another edge loop right in here. So make sure to clear my mask. And let's do a single edge so that I can kind of put where I want that to be there. Okay, that looks good. And then once again, we're going to unmask just these outside points. And again, we are going to be working symmetrically, right? So I can center based upon a mask. I'm going to make sure I reset my gizmo so that I can pull that down and maybe pull this in here a little bit more like that. Do something inside like that. And then now these edges here, right? You can even do things like sliding them, right? And manipulating like that. Or do what we just did. I want now this edge right here. So masking. I'm going to do a complete edge loop. I want those masked. I'm going to inverse them. Come back in, look at it dynamically, and start manipulating and doing something more like that. Right? So this is the tread I'm starting to make for the tire. Okay, and then I can even, if I want to, come through here. Here's something nice for you all. Again, inserting multiple edge loops. I'm going to do down the center, keep my polygrouping. Do something like that. Okay, and then I'm going to grab this gizmo and I'm going to hold the Alt key, right, and click on this vertex and then boom, click that. And then now, if you guys remember, I can even change this tread to be even like a little bit smaller tread through here. Right? And then now we've got things at our disposal. Okay, I want this part. Let's Q mesh this. But let's just change the height of it. So it just has more, something more like that. Just a little bit more in the tread, right? And now I'm seeing this on all the tires, right? Which is great. This is what I want. I want to see it on all the tires. But I want to start playing even more with this tread design. And I'm not sure where I want to go with this. So this is going back again, once again, going back to our ArrayMesh. Okay, so let's get into that ArrayMesh again. Remember, this particular one has 2 stages. And you notice when you're on stage 1 and stage 2, whatever's on stage 2 is being, see, it's showing you, okay, what exists, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on stage 1 and I'm going to insert a new once again. So now there's 3 stages again here. And I'm going to come back here. And once again, let's use the transpose line, okay? And I'm going to grab this center port right here. And I'm just going to move it down here to sit right there, okay? And now I'm going to say I want to repeat a lot more. And I'm even going to switch to rotate, and just so you guys can visually see what's going to start happening. I can just start rotating this, see? And there, it's happening on all the tires. What? Right? This, for me, is such a big deal, especially as, I'm going to air quotate this, as a designer. Right? So now I'm going to be like, okay, well, rotation, if it's a tire, right, this should be going a certain, so 360 degrees minimum. Right? And then there, now I've got this, but I can say, do I like this as my treads, or do I want actually more? And now I can just go, like, how much treading do you want, right? Do you want a little bit of a tread? Like, this is where then you as an artist, you make a decision what you like. I'm just setting you guys up with the workflow is all I'm doing. Okay, and then there, I went with more like this. I wanted to have a little bit more treading, because again, this goes back to the physical size of this thing is pretty big, right? That's a pretty big thing, okay? So there you go. There's how I make it. That's how I made the tires. That's it. Those are the tires. Look, so you see we got now the nice rims, different materials. We got the tires. We got the treading. I can change it later on if I want to. Okay, so really great way to start working with it. So let's continue down the path here. Let's keep working here. All right, so we need the tires. I want to give them, like, they're touching the body a little bit. So let's give them a little breathing room for that. So once again, what do I have at my disposal here? I've got an ArrayMesh, right? So let me use it. Let me use it as an example, right? So it doesn't matter which one of these I click on. They're all the same. They're all repeating 5. Judge Dredd. I like it. So I'm going to duplicate this. Okay. And now I'm going to take this up here on the top. I'm going to move it into this folder and put it right below the body. Right. So this is different. I'm taking it out of the tires and putting it around here. I'm going to rename this. I like to rename them body like cuts or body sub is usually how I like to rename my subtools here. All right. And guys, I have to turn up my fan a little bit. It is getting warm in my office. You have to let me know if my voice can overpower any background noise that you guys might be hearing. If it's really bad, let me know, because it's getting. I have my AC and everything off just so we wouldn't have background noise. I don't know. Let me know if that's just too much for you. Okay. How much of what you're showing is also available in other versions of ZBrush? Part of it, like all this ArrayMesh stuff is, but all this, how we build all this, and I'm going to continue, is not. Okay? Okay, well, is it Chef Curry Beef? Is it really bad? Is it distracting? Let me know, because I need to get some air flowing in here. Okay, so let's continue on. I'm back to this. I'm going to say, let me look at this. Okay, this is this piece right here, right? I'm going to say Y, and I'm going to center this. And I'm going to say, let's convert this one into a cube, right? Oh, boy. This is just way too big of a cube right now, right? It's just massive. Let's just get this out of here. Okay, let's it's really big. There we go. Let me just frame it and size it down a lot more. We'll rotate it. In this case, we don't need it this big. It's excessive. This came in gigantic on me. Right? And this particular one is doing, well, actually, you know what? That looks interesting. Let's keep that. Actually, I'm going to keep that. Let's move that down here. And let's just grab this one, and this will be easier. And oh, that's why it was so big, because I was getting 5, right? So I'm going to duplicate this. Let's move this one up here, and let's rename this body cuts. And let's name this. Where did I put that out here? This one. And let's rename this now rim round pieces, right? We'll do something like that. So now we're back to this body part. Then now I'm going to say, let's replace this cube. So now that I have the cube, there it is. I'm going to move this up, and let's go ahead and crease it. Crease. Okay. And then now I'm going to go probably a little bit bigger. And let's start pushing it this way. Okay. And then now I'm going to turn this into a subtractive and turn on my live booleans. And so now what I'm doing is cutting into the surface to give it a little bit more of a design element here, right? And this is where I'm saying I knew the height of this wasn't going to work for me. So I'm going to, I wanted to be pushing about right there. Okay. I'm going to go back to this piece. And let's just mask off from here to here. Okay. And then just make the body a little bit bigger. Something more like that. Okay. Come back to this. Right, and then we're going to be doing that. And then moving this into place, something like that. Let's go bigger. Right here, I'll turn off the tires so you guys can see. So this is what I'm doing right now. I'm doing this. And then I'm going to taper this down, something more like this, I think. Get a little bit of taper in there. And then we'll taper the bottom out a little bit more. Let's go a lot more. Something like that. Now let's throw our tires back on. And then now I need this to sit up higher. So we need this to sit right about at least there, right? I would say is a good spot. And then now let's go ahead and use our handy dandy once again extender. Let's extend this out so it gives me at least something like that. Okay, and they need to come up a little bit more so they just have clearance there. And then I'm going to come back and say, let's go ahead and start creasing this. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to crease, right? So you can either do this. Now you have something like this starting to happen. Okay, and then now I think the bottom is way too wide. And then this is the beauty, again, once again, of ArrayMesh. I'm making design decisions based upon, in essence, the ArrayMesh, right? Giving me what I'm getting right now. Okay? So then I'm going to come back to this thing. I'm going to move this back up a little bit more. Looking at this, I think I'm going to go right about there. I'm fine with that. That's working for me. Okay, and then now I've got all this working for me in here, right? I've got all these pieces working, right? And then I don't want it to go this deep in, so let's go back to selecting, again, the one right below it. And I don't want it to be that much of a digging in to the body. I just want a little bit of a nice little representation of where you would see tires actually going. And then this is again now where I'm like, okay, now that I start to see all this, this is not working for me, right? This part right here, this body part, isn't working for me. It needs to be, I'm gonna go a lot wider. So again, right, I'm gonna turn off symmetry, center this, reset it, and then use my extender. I want it to sit over the tire more. Something a little bit more like that. Just makes more sense. And then it's benefit because I want this to be really, really wide. Okay? What's going on, Marianne? So there you go. Okay? So you have that ability, right, in there to start. It's all about adjusting. Okay? It's all about adjusting all the things that I want to do in here. Okay? So now that we have this, okay, I've got these kind of where I want them. Those are looking good. Maybe I want to edit this a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to come back to these subtractive pieces. And now maybe, you know what? Let's maybe have a Q grid. And let's play with that. And I want to do something more like that. Yeah, I like that look a little bit better. And so now I'm I'm automatically getting a bevel inside there to create a little bit of difference. Okay, that's working a lot better for me. Okay, for what I want. Now let's go ahead and let's say look at this array. Okay, and right now we've got an array with multiple things happening. Number one, this particular array, right, has 5 repeats. Right, so there's a 5th one way out here. Okay, so I'm gonna adjust these a little bit more. I'm actually going to knock this down to 4, and then I'm gonna readjust these to actually be a little bit more like that. Okay, so now that I have 4 of them, I want to reuse this now. So I got this on both sides, and I'm going to reuse this. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to rename this now. Tire, I don't know. I'm going blank. I'm just tire top. I'm going blank on this. Okay. Q grid is really important to understand, right? So Q grid is automatically creating a bevel or a chamfering. So if we go back to our dynamics, right here, if I just turn off the smoothness, see, it automatically creates a bevel. Every single edge loop is being beveled. Okay? So this is all being beveled. Right? Not mud flaps. I'm not going there yet, Specky. Okay, so, and then you can turn it into a chamfer, which is now giving you more of a rounded, see, profile? It's giving you more of a rounded profile there. And then the bevel, and then something like that. That's what it's doing. Okay, so I'm going to say, all right, let's keep with this. And I'm going to say now, let's apply on this one. And I don't need, see, when you're doing this, though, you're going to add a lot of edge loops. So I don't need this, I don't need this. That's fine, I'll keep the rest. And then I'm going to do this. I want these to be their own polygroup. Okay, so now I have that. Let's go ahead and delete those. All right, and then now I'm going to go ahead and slice across. So instead of the knife, I'm going to use a curve, slice, and now we'll just have that. We'll delete hidden, and now when we turn this on, I'm looking to create something here that's going to sit up right above the tire. So number one, these are way too wide. I'm going to go a lot smaller, something more like that. Okay, and then I'm going to Q mesh these, all polygons, give it a little bit of some thickness through here, right? And then that gives me this. And then from the top, let's add a little more element art in here. So let's insert multiple edge loops this time. And let's not just do a specific location. I want interactive. So I'm going to do something like that. And then I'm going to take this face, Q mesh a single polygon, and pull it out a little bit so we get something like that. Okay, I don't like that as much, so I'm going to adjust this and make them be wider. Those two edge loops, something more that round. It's in here, right? So I'm just reusing stuff in a way here, right? And then I'm going to say, okay, let's continue. Let's make this be a little bit more like that. Something a little bit smaller, just sitting up there. And I'm going to go, looking at this, I'm going to come down just a little bit and something like that. All right, and let's go ahead and increase all of this through here, right? And then if you want to, right, we turn this on and turn our smooth back on again. We got our crease levels here. We start creasing those, and I want completely those creased and those creased as well. So now we got some kind of thing like that. And I would definitely say these points right here, they need to be tapering in a lot, probably. Yeah, let's make them taper in a little bit there. And then now I want that crease. Oh, I'm grabbing points I don't want to grab. I only want these points. Mask those off. I want just those. There we go. I want just something like that. And maybe, you know, looking at this, I'm actually going to get rid of this edge loop. So I get something more like that. And now I need to crease those, and let's see, make those sure those are creased, that's creased, right? Maybe make something like this. Just change things up a little bit. And then now we start getting into starting to do some design elements and doing some more things here. Okay, Valentine, that question I've answered. It's not going to work on a cylindrical around. It doesn't go around. It only goes straight. Okay, adjust what level? If you can, whatever question you're asking. Somebody was adjusting the level, so I'm going to keep going while you're going to answer, and I'm going to start now putting some design element in here. Let's crease this completely. Okay, and then I'm going to pull up this face, do something like that. Let's just do crease all. Yeah, give me a little bit of different ridge in there. Let's also then, let's insert multiple edge loops. Let's do something like this. Let's get rid of this. And then let's insert a single, something like that. And I'm going to do something like this. So it's got a little bit that, right? Just start adding these little depth things, come in really handy. Okay? What happens when you adjust the level Q grid? What do you mean the level? There's no level of Q grid. There isn't a level. There's the number. You're talking about the slider itself. Is that what you're talking about, referring to? Like what happens when you do that? All right, and then we're in here, and then here I'm going to do this inset. I'm going to do a poly. Inset this. Crease all. Q mesh. Polygroup all. Over here, I'm going to crease all of that. Just get a little bit of something there. Ooh, let's also. Now that I look at this, I'm going to do another inset right here. So I'm going to do an inset of here. So I'm going to say, again, I'm going to say this right here. Let's inset here. And then I'm going to Q mesh that. And I'll crease all that so that we get something that looks like that. Okay, and then I'm looking at what this looks like everywhere, right? And the back one I'm going to keep alone. I'm going to keep it as is. So there, just a little bit of that design element in there. Okay. All right, and then now go back to this. I'm going to make some adjustments on the body again. I'm going to put the body up higher actually. Okay, and then now this needs to adjust the little cockpit part. So I'm going to turn on my gizmo. And this I'm going to turn on my little, here you go, pizza, pizza. Okay, and now I'm going to say, let's actually select all the pieces that are important to me, which are actually only these two pieces right here, right? And I can move now just these. And I want to go right about in there. So there's that. That's about where I want that to be. Okay, and in fact, looking at this, I'm going to even stretch this out more. I want to go further down the line here. Make it a little bit longer. All right. And now let's start doing some more items here. Okay, so let's put now the pad in the back, because then we're going to start using some more knife brushes as well. So this is where the stager will come in handy for me. Okay, so this is where this is going to be a lot of fun. Okay. Okay, John. See you later. Okay. So to answer the question about the Q mesh again, right? The question that was coming through with this, understanding this Q grid. This is saying, and when I put this on, this says how many edge loops to put on either side of the existing. Okay, so if you look, see there's the actual edge loops themselves, the darker ones. And then if you look to the right or left, there's really light ones. So when I do Q grid 1, it's saying put an edge loop 1 on either side. So if you guys keep adding, all you're doing is adding more and more and more edge loops. I don't tend to do that. And the point of that is when you want to start changing this profile with the chamfering option, right? Because then if you're changing this, see this coverage, but if you start changing your grid, so you can actually change that profile. But you can technically do the same thing just by going down to 1 and then just changing the coverage instead, right? So that's what it's doing. It's just the higher you put it, the more edge loops you're adding. Okay. So now that we have that, we're coming back to this. All right, let's put that pad on the back of it so I can really make sure, do I like the size that I'm doing right now? So I'm going to make that part of the body. So I'm going to insert, let's insert a cube. I'm definitely going to change this. And let's go ahead and select a cylinder. The cylinder 3D to be specific. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to close it this time. And I don't need any edge loops this way. And then I want, I think I want 7. No, there's 5. We can go 5 or 6. I'm going 6. Okay, I'm going to bring this down through here. Okay, and then size it down a little bit, or I don't even have to. This is now where the stager can come into play. So now I can come in here and use the stager in essence as a point of interest design-wise. Okay, come into this stager and I say this is my home state. Now I'm like, okay, I need to position this somewhere else, change the size, and I'm not quite sure if this is where I want to go with this or not, right? So I'm figuring this out in this scenario, right? So I have it here, and I'm going to say maybe a little bit, maybe I like the size, but I'm going to make it come in just a little bit more here. A little bit smaller, and put it towards the back a little bit more. And then this is a target. And now at any time I can switch between the two. Right? Or I can say, you know what, let's just even make a new home state. Maybe would I prefer it here? Like, do I prefer it maybe to be up towards the front? And now I can switch between the two. Right? And then visually I can go, which one do I prefer? Okay, that's I'm using it more as this. So I preferred it in the back. Right? So now I got this. Now let's go ahead and make this the pad real quick, right? So I'm gonna say here, we'll make this a new poly group so it's colored. We've already got insert and edge loop, so I want to do something like this. Okay, there. let's go ahead and let's repolygroup this. And then I'm going to mask off just this portion. And let's let this have a little bit of something like that, right? But actually, we need the same thing on the bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to mirror and weld to make my life a little bit easier over the Y, right? And then that way I can do this and just put a little bit, and then it's also happening on the bottom, right? Stay consistent, something like that. Okay, nice. Let's see what that looks like on there. Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and let's just do a crease all. Turn on my dynamics. Crease level to 2, 4, and now we got something like that. And in this case, I'm going with a crease level of 3 instead. I want it to stay a little bit more harsh. Okay, no, you cannot have different geo in the two target states. It's got to be the same topology. You can change the topology, like you can Sculptures Pro on it, you can add edge loops, but you can't have the target, for example, be 1,000,000 polygons and the home be 10 polygons. You can't do that. Okay, so okay, this is starting to come together. Perfecto. All right, I'm gonna now say, let's look at this. Let's do an inset. Let's do along a poly loop, and let's do every single polygon in here. And I'm gonna do this here. And this time I'm gonna turn this off so you guys can see the dynamic, so you guys can see what's happening here. And I want the same thing there. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, let's Q mesh this now. All right, and I'll do polygroup all. And then now I got this happening. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and crease all again. So now I got that. All right, that's looking good to me. Okay, and then now I'm going to say, let's have some fun with this area in here. Right, so I'm gonna do an inset again. Poly loop, but this time a region. And I want a region there, and then you know what, I want that same thing there. So now I can just tap and put this in all spots. And then now I'm gonna take these, Q mesh, polygroup all. Just start adding some design element in here. Okay, and then I'm gonna do another, let's do an inset again. Okay, polygroup and all. Something like this now. And then now let's Q mesh, polygroup all. And let's just let it have a little bit, and then crease it all. And now we have, whoops, something like this going on. Okay. And hold on, I didn't change my polygroups. It's alright, we'll fix it. And then now these, I'm going to readjust these again. In fact, let's do, okay, I like that. Let's do this. Let's take these. Let's inset a region again. Something like that. And then Q mesh, polygroup all. Let's get that. Let's crease that all again. Okay, let's get back to something like this. Okay, now we're rocking, right? So this is where I'm going with this in the back. Let's start putting some design now on this pad. Okay, so I want to be able to take advantage of this, right, and use this a little bit differently. Okay, so let's start saying, let's copy this. Okay, so this is the, whoops, Helipad. And let's duplicate this and rename this Helipad design. Let's say. Alright, and then the only faces that I really am worried about are these ones right now. So I'm going to delete the rest of those. Okay, and now let's make a design. So let's insert an edge loop here. Let's go here, to maybe here. All right. That looks good there. And I'm going to polygroup this with something more like that. Then I'm going to insert, let's insert a perfect edge loop through there. Now let's only look at this. Okay, and let's go with, actually, before I do that, let's do this. Let's go, and I want to make a slice here. Let's do that, and I'm going to mirror weld across the X, right? So I want to, let me see my floor. Right, something like that. Oh, it might help if I delete. Okay, and let's do that. Let's delete that. All right. And then now this, let's Q mesh this up. All the way up, just a little bit. Something like that. And then now I'm going to also inset, right? Once again, if you notice, I like me some insetting. All polygon groups. Something like that. Q mesh, polygroup all. Just give it that. I'm gonna crease it all. And now we have something like this. Right? And I'm gonna adjust the height of this a little bit to be more something like this. Now that I have that, let's make the H in the middle. And let's go ahead and assign a different material and color for this, right? So I'm gonna select orange, and let's select, yeah, I guess we'll select that basic material. Works for me. And then I'm gonna say, let's go MRGB, color, fill object. Now I'm gonna go to this one. Let's make this have a different shade of gray, so it really starts to stand out a little bit more. And then I'm gonna make this have that material. So color, fill object. So then that's starting to separate them all, making them feel like different separate pieces as well. Okay. Thanks, Ryan. Glad you're liking it. Okay, Jones, thanks for staying up till 4 in the morning. Okay. Okay, so now we got this. Let's make the H. Okay, that's an easy peasy thing. I'm going to use another plugin to do that. I'm going to come over here, 3D Print X, and say new, and I'm going to say I just need an H. Let ZBrush make the H for me. Right, so there's my H. Yay! And then I'm going to say, actually, let's give it some bevel. Okay, that's good. And let's see, is there a bold? Yeah, let's make it bold. There, that's better. Okay, and then that, I'm going to want to give the same treatment, poly paint wise and material wise, as that. But let's first get it into position. So let's put it here. I'm going to go this way with the H. Something like this. Okay, I'm going to get that there, and then smaller, and then drop it down. There you go. And we want this to have orange as well, and we want it to have that material, MRGB, color, fill object. Okay, and then now we're gonna go back to this, right, and this, and it looks like I need to assign also. I did not assign that the right colors. Okay, now we're starting to make some stuff happen here, right? All right, let's go ahead and continue on our process now. Let's start using some more of the new brush. Let's use some more of that knife brush, okay, to our benefit here. All right. So let's do some things along the top of this truck just to spice it up a little bit, make some differences here. All right. So let's grab the main body once again, which is this. Okay, and I'm going to duplicate this. Let's use some of this new knife brush for sure. Okay, so I'm gonna re-polygroup this. All right, and I'm gonna say let's use the knife brush now, and I want to go through here. That makes that, and then I'm gonna go through here and make that right. So that way I have different polygroups, right? So this is a polygroup and that's a polygroup, right? And the only things I'm going to care about is this piece. This is it. This is all I'm really worried about. And then I'm going to say, now let's delete the rest of it. Okay. And then I'm going to say, all right, let's start using this to our benefit a little bit. So I'm just going to quickly ZRemesh this again. So I'm going to turn on symmetry. Okay, and I'm going to say, let's keep our groups. And I'll just ZRemesh this. Okay, so now I got something a little bit more, okay, to do this. Okay, and now let's go ahead and let's assign some new polygrouping here with some thickness as well. So we're going to QMesh. I'm going to say all polygons, and let me have this be, okay, now that. So now this is a raised surface now, right? So let's assign this a different color as well. So let's give this the same material, but let's go from the body, right? The body's got a different color. So it's just got white. So let's go a little bit darker. Okay, something like that. And I'm gonna now say mRGB, color fill object. Okay, so now this has got me a nice piece like that. I'm gonna divide it up dynamically, see what that looks like. All right, I actually am good with that. So I'm gonna apply that and delete the topology. And now, this is where the beauty of the knife brush also is gonna come into play. So I'm gonna be in symmetry mode with the knife brush. And I'm just gonna say, okay, I wanna go from there. Okay, I don't want the same in the back. And then from the front, I'm gonna have it stop right about there. Okay? So now I've got this thing just sitting here, right? And now I'm gonna start having some design fun here. Right, and then this is something that you guys should be doing. So I'm just gonna turn off the line. Okay, and I'm just gonna go to solo so you guys can visually see it better, what's happening here. And I'm gonna turn on B radius. Okay, I want this B radius is what I want. Okay. You know what, we haven't saved in a long time. We haven't saved yet. Why take a drink of water? All right, now that I have B radius, let's have some design fun now. Okay, so I'm gonna come across here. I'm gonna hold the Alt key and bingo, right? So I can find what I want. Okay, that looks good there, right? And then now I can see, okay, now we're getting that. Let's go a little bit smaller brush size. Let's go with a 50. And then now let's go through here. That's actually interesting, but I think before I do that, I'm gonna do one this angle. I want to put one here. Okay, and then this is what I'm doing now. Okay, and then let's no, I'm gonna come across here, I think. So I'm gonna cross here for that, hold the Alt key. Okay, and then let's come across here, holding the Alt key. Let's go all the way. let's see. Let's go all the way through here. Something like that. Okay. And this island here, I'm going to now get rid of this. I don't want this island anymore. I'm going to get rid of that. Right? Just start giving myself a little bit more design element in here. Okay, let's do something in the front. Let's come across here. Let's break this up. And let's break this up in here. Okay, let's do something like that there. And now let's cut through here. Might as well cut through there. Maybe an angle. I'm trying to figure out design-wise what I want to do. Let's turn symmetry back on. Let's turn off B radius for now. Let's give this a little bit more different in the front. Let's get a little something different in the back. Start having stuff like this happening. Okay. And then now I can start to see this needs to be raised. This needs to be raised now, right? So back to, let's get that before I continue doing this. Or in fact, let's just even drop this a little bit lower. I just want this to be a little bit of a raised surface on this design, right? And then let's go here and once again turn on this so we can make some adjustments and everything's going to move, right? I don't want any of that to move. I just want the front cockpit to move and then that helipad part to move. Right, so there we go with that. Right, so we start to do stuff like this. We can come back to this now and then put our B radius back on if we want to. And then cut through here. Something like that. Let me turn off symmetry. I don't want this symmetrically messing around with stuff. Something like that. Okay, that looks different and interesting. Let's do one here. Okay. Something like that. Maybe not so much. Something more like that maybe. And in fact, I kind of like what's going on there, so I'm going to take this and then just move it more this direction a little bit. There you go. Put a little bit of gap of interest in there. Okay? So this is how I started making all these panels on the top. Okay? So the B radius is going to give us 2 cuts. Right? So now that I have the B radius on, it's looking and it's cutting it into 2 pieces for me. Right? So that's working here. Now let's go to the front. I want to make a little something else here for the front end. Okay, I start adding some more design elements in here. So let's append a cube. Actually, instead of appending, let's put it right here in the main folder here for the truck. Rename this front. I don't know. I'll just call it front lighting. I don't know what to call it right now. At least I have a name. We'll do this. Then I'm going to select a cylinder again. Let's give it a lot more radius like this. Let's size this down in here. Okay, make this smaller, something like that, right about in there. Then go to my extender and extend it out, and then I accept that. Let's do another extender again and go out. Let's go out that far. Right now I got something like that there, and let's have some fun with this. now. Let's have it come off a little bit more. Here, I'll turn on the lines so you guys can see everything again. And let's insert a single edge loop. Ba-da-da-bam! And then to make myself easier, I'm just going to do this. Shrink it, new polygroup, QMesh, polygroup all. Push that in, something like that. Then let's bevel. Let's bevel it. Okay, something like that. And then I definitely want that creased. We'll crease that, even though it doesn't matter. Something like this. Turn on my dynamic. And then once again, give it 4, creasing 2. So now I have something like that near the front. Let's have some more fun with the design of the full body in here. Okay, so let's insert a cube. I'm going to turn this instantly subtractive, and I'm going to call this body subs. Right? Let's bring this forward. Right? And then this is where you can start making some kind of design decisions. Maybe I'm going to do something more like that now. Okay, and then I'm actually going to repeat this as far as duplicating, and I'm giving it an angle. So the bottom can be angled. Something like that. And then we can even make it have a little bit of different offset, right? This is just gonna now start, this is how I start adding like a lot of little details. I start just grabbing some shapes and we start cutting into this. Right? And then it's, the knife brush does have a mode where it's supposed to keep islands and non-islands. It's here, if I, to better explain it for you, okay? If we are, let's make this a poly mesh. Let's give it a little bit more geometry. Okay, you got something like this, right? Sorry. Oh, not a rotation. Let's do this. In fact, let's even just turn it into a Dynamesh. Oh, Dyna. Okay, so when you start cutting, right, like this, especially if you're using something like B radius, if you hold the Alt key, right, you're creating geometrical islands, right? So the difference between the knife and the trim is it's not deleting everything, right? It is appreciating the islands in essence through here, right? It's looking at these islands. So if I did this, right, this doesn't get affected. And then now I can do this, right, and all of these affected. So if I start doing stuff like this, and then like this, you can see only those islands are getting affected because these aren't being touched on like the trim. Okay, so I don't know if maybe this is what you're running into. So this is a feature of the brush, is it needs to pay attention to islands. And then depending on where you're cutting, so if I turn off B radius now, and if I'm just cutting straight through like this, so you notice that island right there didn't get touched because the curve didn't actually go through that portion, right? So then that's how you can even, going back to this, you can start messing around with even this stuff, right? And then you can say, oh, I want this over here, right? If we go back and click on this, you can start now doing stuff where this stuff, right? And then only that one is cutting and not touching anything else. This is a feature. So I'm not sure if this is what you were referring to or if this is what you've been running into, but that's what it can do, and you gotta have that understanding. Okay. ATV Pro, it's gonna be better for you to send something into support with the model, right? If you're turning on the side, okay, it's fine. So it's best if you ran into something. It could be the geometry itself is the problem. I don't know. I'd have to see it. So your best bet, if you have a mesh that, for whatever reason, you're saying what it's doing, go to support.pixologic.com and attach the mesh, and then one of us will take a look at it and see. Okay? Could be you ran into a scenario that we need to look at as well. All right, so continuing on now. Let's go ahead and mess with the same thing down here. I'm going to come to this thing now. We're going to duplicate this, right? And I'm going to call this Cockpit Subs. All right, and then now I'm going to say, all right, let's apply this. Let's go ahead and apply the dynamic. Let's turn this into real topology. And let's start doing some more fun, right, with the B radius and our knife. So I'm going to first say, let's just cut this down to be right about there, right about there. Okay, and then now we'll knife this a certain way. Let's be symmetrical, why not? B radius, size. Let's try a brush size of 4 first. Let's see if I like that. Okay, that works. And then come across here again. Once again, I'm just holding the Alt key, okay, to make these cuts happen and making islands here, right? In essence is what I'm doing. That's all we're doing. Same thing that we did on the top. All right, so now that we're doing this, okay, we have this kind of stuff going on, right? Some nice parts for us to control some things. So I'm going to say, okay, that's a great start. And now let's combine some of my other favorite brushes with this brush. All right, so I'm going to say, let's switch now to the slice curve. Where are ya? Slice curve. Turn off my B radius. And I'm going to say, I'm going to go from here to there. And that looks good. Delete hidden. Then from the front, I'm going to go here to here. Okay. Let me fix this face right here. Make that pink. Save that. Whoops. I don't want that. Alright, and delete hidden of that. I'm going to mirror and weld across the X now. So we get that. Let's do something else here, maybe. How's that looking? Yeah, it's a little too plain for me yet. So I'm going to come across now here. I'll just go straight across. And delete hidden, mirror and weld. So something like that. Okay, that works for me. Let's do something in here. Let's come up. No, I don't want to do a rounded one. Let's do a harsh point again. Okay, the polygons are pretty low. So I need to maintain what I would like to be maintained. Delete hidden. Okay, I'm going to say that's good enough. So what I'm looking for this to become are the window treatment. Right? So I'm going to look at this more in that sense. Okay? Now, what of course we can do here is remesh this if we want to. Okay? So once again, we can use that handy dandy Z remesher. And I'm going to give you a lot more topology this time. Let's give it 15,000. And I don't need keep groups, and I'm just going to remesh this. Okay, so now I have something like this. Okay, that works for me. And now let's go ahead and throw some thickness on this. So I'm just going to use dynamic. And I'm going to throw no smoothness. Let's throw some thickness in this. And keep the offset at 0. Okay. And then now let's apply that. Okay. And then now you have that. And now do you want the windows raised? Or in my case, I want them to be subtracted inward. Right? And then now I have this. And then now that I have this, I went, you know what? Let's go back. This is the beauty of, I'm going to go back to that knife, right? And make sure I don't want B radius on. I'm going to say, you know what? Let's just even change that. Let's make the windows more like that. Like, I know you guys have all already said it, but having this new knife brush has just been amazing. Okay? So now that I have that, now let's continue moving on. Let's continue adding a little bit more elements into this top portion up here, the front. And then this is where, you know, I would probably also want this to have the orange, right? I'd want that to have the orange. And then I selected a material, like I did this frame material, which gives it a nice little, looks like it's a lighting. Okay. So I like that, so I'm gonna give that. And then I want this material and this color to be on this stuff here. There, and then same thing for this. There. Okay, and then now that I actually look at this, again, after the fact, I'm just thinking of something that maybe, I don't know, no, I think we're good. Okay, and then now let's put something along the top here as well. But actually, it's right now it's looking weird for me not having the front chassis items. Okay, so let's make something for that. So let's see, the helipad will be a group. That stuff's important. And then I need to actually finish that too in the back. So let's actually come in here. All right, and let's actually finish this. I bounced away from this. Let's finish this. I'm going to duplicate this. And then looking at just this, I'm going to Q mesh, single polygon. Let's close this back up. Just tapping, tappa. And then now I'm going to shrink. So all I have left is this. And let's delete hidden. Modify, delete hidden. I'm not going to smooth it. Let's drop these down more in there. And then now dynamically, let's change this up a little bit. Let's turn dynamic on. No smooth, no nothing, and let's go micro poly. And like throw something like this on it. And then now I need more. So instead of using the smooth, I'm actually going to use the flat just to give me the number that I want. Okay, that looks good to me. And then now that's how I made that mesh, maybe 3. There you go. And that's how I made that mesh in there, right? I'm just reusing pieces again and going through this process. Okay, so that is at a point where I like it now. Let's get now to the front part of this. Let's build this front chassis part up. All right, so that's going to be here near the front. So let's go ahead and select this. Let's insert a cube. Okay. Front wheel. Oh, sorry. Front wheel frame. Frame it up. And let's bring that forward. And let's do this here, this here. All right, and we're gonna size it down. We're gonna stretch it like this. All right, working for me. Okay, that's a good chunk to start with. And actually, I'm gonna do just to give you guys another little trick. I'm gonna ArrayMesh this, turn all this on. Yes, Parkish, this can be exported. Yes, micropoly can be exported as an OBJ. Yes, you have to convert it though. You got to hit that apply button in dynamic subdivs. Okay, and then now I've got this all on. I've got repeat 2, so I'm gonna turn on my transpose line so you can just see where this is sitting. It's sitting dead center of the mesh. So I'm gonna reset so it's back to the center of the world, and then I'm gonna mirror over. So watch, this is why I'm doing this. This is actually very nice, okay? Now we're going to reposition this maybe to be more there. And then now let's have some fun here. Okay, let's go and back to Dynamesh. Oh, Dyna. Oh, Dyna. That's right. You're all awake now. You're all up and ready to go. Okay, and let's go ahead and say, let's start making this look cooler. So let's Z model. No, let's bevel this arc. Okay, I'm gonna go with a big brush size. We're gonna turn on symmetry. And in fact, let's even turn on Y symmetry. And then this is why I'm doing this ArrayMesh. Watch this. I'm gonna do this to this, right? And then see the other side. So you see that's happening automatically from the other side. So I've got like double symmetry happening right now. Okay, so I've got not only, actually triple symmetry. I got across X and Y, but then left side, right side, left side, right side. So this is kind of why I did this ArrayMesh. I'm a big fan of ArrayMesh in what I'm trying to figure out design-wise, because then I can just visually see the stuff. So let's do something like this in here, something like that. Okay, and then I'm gonna say, you know what, this needs to be a lot smaller. It's a little too big for my liking. All right, and maybe a little bit bigger. And then once again, holding the Alt, pressing there, I can now change the length of this to go way back there. All right, and then now I am also going to recenter with no symmetry, reset my gizmo. I'm gonna come to my deformer in here. Okay, once again. Wait, do I have, oh, let me turn off the symmetry. So, I'm gonna have to look into that. Interesting. Okay, so let's angle this. Maybe something like this. I need to turn my array back on. Then it's gonna come up more like this. Something maybe like that. Right? Come into there. And let's have some more fun up here. So let's go with no symmetry. And let's do something like this. Let's go a lot more here. Something like that. And then at the bottom, let's do a little one. Something like that on the bottom one. Okay, just to start giving a little bit more nicer element in here. Let's switch now to the bevel flat. I'm gonna go with a smaller brush size. And let's go from here to here. Let's go do something a little bit more like this inside. Just to start breaking things up a little bit for me. Okay, so I need something to come off this to make it actually look like a chassis, right? No, there's no way to loop around Matthew. No, it's only point A to point B right now for these brushes. That's it. All right, so I like where this is going, but let's go ahead, brush insert. Let's grab our model kit. Wherever you are, there you are. Let's grab this. And I want to put the model kit out on the outside. Okay, so I'm going to do this. Put it right about there. All right, so we can see what that is looking like. All right, and then I'm going to split this. I don't want these to be in the same subtool, so I'm going to just split masked points or unmasked points. And this is the round. Okay, because I want to turn this one to have dynamic on, so it has dynamic. And we're going to pull this way out. So it gets to somewhere right about there. Right? And then now, I would want that to be more right there, actually. Something like that. And then this, let me reselect this. Let me move these a little bit more in space like that. Oh, maybe not that much. That looks good to me. Okay, I'm happy with that. Right, so then this is giving me this control, right? You gotta have the spin on. Okay, and then I'm gonna do, to turn the wheels, I'm gonna do something else inside here, right? So I'm gonna do a different rim in here. Okay, so instead of having all the rims be the same, I'm gonna do something different. So I'm happy with what these rims are doing for me. Okay, so this is also what you're gonna be able to do down the pipeline. Okay, so if I'm like, okay, this part right here, which is the center, right? These are all of our rim parts down here, right? So there's this one I'm gonna keep. Then there's this one, which is making up that center. Then there's the new oval ones, and then there's that, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and say, let's apply it. Right? So I'm not going to extrude and say make mesh, make mesh. Same thing for this one. Make mesh, make mesh, make mesh, make mesh, make mesh, make mesh. There. Now they're physical pieces, right? This is the difference, right? And I don't want that, right? So delete hidden of that one. I don't want these, delete hidden, and I don't want this, delete hidden. So now what we're gonna have is an empty front tire, right? That I want to make a different type of rim for the front that's going on in here. I want something very different. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get back to this piece, and I'm going to now center that. Let's duplicate this, and I'm going to go with a cylinder once again. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And let's make it actually, make sure I'm straight, something like that. And then let's go right up into there. Okay. And then now I'm going to look at this and say, let's have a little bit more fun with this, if you will. Okay. Be able to do a little bit more. So let's smooth this one out now, which is smoothing that. Let's fix this. Let's go ahead and also separate. I'm going to separate this from that. So I'm going to go back down to the split mask points again. Right, so now I have this one and this one. Let's crease it. Crease it! So we get something more like that. Alright, and then let's go a little bit. Alright, that looks good, but let's work in symmetry along the Y. Right, and let's look at this, and let's even mirror and weld it along the Y here. Yes, do it, go for it. And then that way I can switch to Z modeler, and I'm going to insert edge up there, insert edge up there, and we will crease this. I'm going to crease those. I'm going to push this in, Q meshing it with a poly loop. something like that. Okay, and let's change where these are sitting in space. So something like that. Something more like that. That's starting to give the feeling that it can be axised that way. So this is where the wheel is going to turn from. It's turning from this central location. Right, and then I'm going to bevel that. We're going to bevel. We're going to bevel. Right, and then I'm going to do again my handy dandy creasing. Like that. We're going to do something like this. Alright, and for fun, I think I'm going to add one more element to this. So I'm going to center it with no symmetry on. I'm going to duplicate this, and let's grab this. And let's rotate it so it's like that. And let's do something like this. And then now maybe, I think it will go a little bit more like this. And let's go ahead and crease that, so we get that. Okay. And let's go ahead and insert more edge loops here, another edge loops here, creasing. And poly loop it back, down, bevel. I'm going to put a bevel in there, put a bevel in there. We're going to insert in here. Okay, get something like that. And let's take this piece again. And let's change this again. So we're going to need to do something more like that. There we go. And actually, let's take this. I don't like my decision, so I'm going to do something more like that. Bad decision to move it. I don't need it moved. Okay, and then this piece here. Something like that. Okay, and then now I want to continue this process of having a little fun here with this. Okay, I'm going to grab this one and look at this, and let's do a mask. Let's see, RGB at 100. There we go. Switch back to that bevel flat, go from there to there. Right, I think I'm going, before I do this, let's give this a little bit more topology. Let's do something like that. And I'm even going to actually, let's just remesh this. And you know, why not? Let's do it. Let's remesh symmetrically. Why not? Not across all those axes. What are you doing? Not across all those axes. Let's just do just the X. We don't need the Y. Okay, and then again, now let's divide this up now. Right, so we can have a little divisions through here. Actually, I'm gonna do something like that. And then we can divide up. And then this is the one benefit of the bevel brushes, is that they obviously can be worked. In fact, you know, let's do that instead. they can work on subdivision surfaces, right? Because it's a sculpting. So I'm going to do something like this. Let's do this, inverse it, and then now let's go from here to here. Something like that. So now we have that look on the top. All right. And then I'm going to take this and duplicate it once again. Right, and let's look at this, and I want, let's see, what part do I want? Let's take this, and I'm again going to start using our knife brush. So no B radius. I only want this portion, that front portion. Let's go a little bit more of that. Let's go right about there. Okay, and let's do a symmetrical there. All right, and then now let's B radius it. And let's go through there. But let's do a little bit of changing of the camera to be a little bit more like that. So that I get that. And let's go also this way. Get that. And so now I have something like this. And I'm going to just make it a little bit bigger. Just don't be shy. Right? Just start adding a couple more nice little design elements in this. And then this is what we're going to be continuing my process, right? This is how I start to make it and start pushing it along more and more and more and more. Okay? I'm just catching up on what you guys are talking about. Ryan, you could just remesh based upon polygrouping is going to be the best way for probably one-click solution for stuff after you live boolean, and then you can also just after that, right? If you're remeshing it based upon the polygroups, you got those polygroups, and then you can divide up and even project. There are a lot of things that you could do for that. That's usually the route I go. Because live booleans has got to use triangles. There's not really much else we can do. You know what, this I don't like. Let's put something else in this. Okay, so I'm going to say, all right, I'm done with the array mesh. I'm good with this. So let's make it a mesh. Right, and I have, hold on. Let me make this have subdivisions. Whoops, not a nano. Make it a mesh. Because I want to now center this. Let's pull that out. Let's throw a cube in here now. Let's go all the way across. So at least it looks like there's some kind of chassis part in here. I'm going to say right about there. Okay, and then that is going to need to be split off. I'm going to split that off. And now that I have this, we're going to go ahead and divide up. But I'm going to want to divide up with no subdivisions. So with no smoothness. So I'm going to divide. That's enough. No, we'll go more. There we go. Right? And then even if I divide there, now I want to change this. So brush C modeler. Let's do a bevel instead, an arc. Right? And let's go really big. And I'm going to go from there to there. Make that be nice and rounded. And then switch to a bevel flat. And then go from there to there. So it's got a little bit of an angle. Let's do that another one. From there to there, just so we have something very different being used. There, that looks good. And there, Okay, and then now let me knife it. No B radius. Let's do something like this. Now let's come across like this actually. I don't, oh, I have symmetry on. I don't want symmetry. And I keep holding the Alt key. It's becoming a habit. Oh, let me delete my subdivision levels too. That's usually useful. Looks like I'm going to save this out and see what's causing this. Interesting. There we go. Something like that. Just to start creating something different. And then I'm going to move this to the bottom of my list. Make a start group. I'm just going to duplicate this. And I'm going to turn that into a cube. Turn on live booleans. And we'll pull this out here. I'm going to put that on an angle. I want to do something like this. And we're going to go across like that. Right? And then now I'm going to continue this kind of thought process here. So we might as well, I'm going to move this into here. Yes. And then continuing this idea, brush, insert. I'm going to select now my live boolean. And let's use this. This would be a nice touch. No symmetry. Put right in here. Something right about like that. Gives me that ability. Let's come over here. Let's put a design element in here now. Let's just create an insert mesh brush with a cube. We're going to come here. Okay, I'm going to be symmetrical this time. And I'm going to reset my gizmo so that it's like this. Let's put that, oops, let's put that there. And 45, let's do 25. A little bit more, I guess. I'm going to shrink this down, something like that. I don't want it sticking out so much. Okay, and we're going to duplicate this. Now I'm going to do a big gap, okay? And then now I'm going to do some small little ones. So there's a difference in there. And in fact, looking at this, let's look at just these. Let's just make these be very different. Let's just stretch them out. And move them somewhere else like that. So there's that. Okay, now I noticed that I did not, when I copied this, I wasn't actually doing this straight. I wasn't straight when I copied this. So I'm going to do a big gap. Okay, do a big gap, and then now let's do little ones. I like the look of that. And now let's take this, do that. Let's throw the sphere on this. Nice little sphere in here. Okay, and let's go ahead and do an extender. Let's do that. Okay, and then I'm going to extend this all the way down to that end. Okay, and then I did not have my symmetry on, no biggie. We're going to mirror and weld across to get both sides. Okay, and then the last element, and then unfortunately I gotta go, but you can see we've got a great looking truck going here, right? So my last element will be back here. Let's make something for here. So let's insert a cube. Perfect. I'm gonna make a reset of that. I'm gonna do something like that. Then let's split it. Okay, move this here. And let's do that. That's good enough. Let's re-Dynamesh this. Oh, Dynamesh. Oh, let's go. This is smaller, so let's go higher. Let's go a little bit higher. Okay, and I want a certain number of these back here. So once again, my handy dandy ArrayMesh. Okay, and then I'm gonna say, let's start with 5. Okay, so 5's too many. And then it looks like 3 is gonna be just the right amount. There we go, 3. So let's do 3 of those. And then now, let's get back to that knife. Make sure B radius is not on. Let's make it have a angle a little bit here. And then an angle here. Now you got these little side compartments that I can use to do whatever I want with them. Let's insert also now, let's grab that model kit. Where are you, model kit? And I'm gonna hit the M key and I want that right there. And let's put one of those on here, so it's gonna happen on all of them once I'm done. Right, out of the, let's say this is where the fuel is, maybe, for it. Okay, and I like that. I'm gonna go ahead and now I want to do some more cutting into this with some live booleans. Okay, so I'm just going to drag this to the bottom again by my other ones, make that a start group, and then I'm going to duplicate that, and let's make this be a cube again. Oops. Make it up, make it subtractive, and I'm gonna do something like this and something like that, and I want it to have an angle a little bit, maybe not that much, maybe just something like that. Now what about the other way now? Okay, yeah, there we go. I want something like that. Right, and then our process can continue along here. Right, I can make this be a little different now. Let's do a little knife. Like, what would that look like? And then maybe a little different one on the front. Something like that. There you go. Right, and then now I would do the same kind of treatment up here for this. I would duplicate this now, and once again we would take this and say, all right, let's work symmetrically. I'm gonna get rid of that much of it. Okay, and I'm going to, because the polygon count's so low, I'm gonna go ahead and Dynamesh this. Okay, and so now looking at this, I don't want anything there. I don't want anything there. And then now let's B radius this. And let's make those be, in essence, separate panels. Let's pull them up. Something like that. And then I'm gonna go across maybe, let's turn off B radius. Something like that there. And I'm gonna do the opposite way here. So you have this kind of thing. And then now, I'm going to come to this in here, right? And just looking at this, I want to put some pattern on this, but let's go ahead and we can clean this up a little bit with the knife. So it's just going to be nice and clean. And now it's going to need to come up a little bit more like that. There you go. And now that we have this, brush, chisel, grab that chisel brush, select this. I'm gonna switch this to Z add. So now this is gonna add sculptural piece like this. I'm gonna divide this so we can just get more topology in here. Even more. Okay, I'm going to, before I do that, let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit better. So I'm gonna knife that there. Okay, I'm gonna knife that there, and knife that there. Okay, so it looks like we've got some clean ones, and I might as well just remesh this. Keep the groups, remesh it. Okay, now divide up. So now I got some topology to work with. That's nice and clean. And again, let me see how this looks. Okay. Okay, that looks good, but I'm not gonna go as strong. Yeah, something more like that. Then I'm gonna go, let's see. Yeah, that's a good size. So I'm gonna go from here to here, and then I'm gonna go from here to here, and then now stroke, and let's use that to interpolate. And start interpolating some things going across that through there, right? In fact, actually, I don't want it to go that low. I actually like it to be a little bit up here, and I'm going to do less interpolations. I'm going to do 4, and I'm going to interpolate. Okay, let me go back to the interpolate. Is also going to see your rotations, so I'm just going to start with fresh. There, do something like that, and then do something similar up here. Maybe, let's see what this would look like. Let's put 15. There you go. Right, just start adding some design elements in here that can really shape up what you're looking at. Okay. So this is where we're at, okay? And there you go, building like your own little sci-fi helipad truck in here, right? And we can continue, keep adding details and more details and more details. But this is about where my other truck is at right now too. So there you have it. That is using, 2021.7 with a lot of, there's a clear lot of knife, the bevels, right? The bubble flats, and then now I just ended with some interpolate. So there's a lot of really great stuff in here, and there's things to think about too, like especially if I come in here, like to this piece, I want to start adding elements as an example using the beveler again. I'm going to use this bevel flat in here, okay? And I'm going to go and say, whoops, let's go from here to here and start beveling on this, right? So I'm going to say, let's re-dynamesh this so we get better topology. And we can up the resolution, okay? And then I'm going to go from here to here and start beveling in here, right? Giving me something like this. Now, what I would probably also do with this is put a nice little mask here, so then I have a clean mask, and go from here to here, and then so that I have that, right? And now what's also very nice is in your polygrouping, you have the polygroup last changed points, right? And then now this